Carl. So we got 11 people. Who's the host here? Desta, are you the host?
I am, but this is Phil's subscription,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the host, so I just started recording, so whatever you want to do, whenever.
Hello.
Hi, Carl. How you doing?
Just great. It's a beautiful day.
Hi, everyone.
It's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What are you working on these days?
Myself, getting the car fixed. A bill or two came up and I got to get it done if I want to travel. this
Oh.
Christmas.
Where are you traveling to?
Ottawa.
Oh, cool. Cool.
Yeah, I got family there, some friends, and it'd be a nice trip.
How's the weather in Ontario?
One day is snow, next day is slush, next day it's warm,
Oh,
and it goes warmer. Then you get snow, then you get +5 or 10, then
wow.
you get a snowstorm, and we'll see.
It's what?
The Texas Central, here in Central Texas, the weather is very similar to what you say. We don't have the snow or the freezing, but we get a cold front, then it gets warms up, gets up to 80, then
Wow.
bam, we get another cool front. I got to tell you, there are no birds in our yard this year. None.
Is that right?
It's freaky. It is freaky. I've had a bird feeder out for weeks. It's still full.
Wow.
Yes.
Here it's maybe what, Desta, 25 below or something, and I saw a couple birds yesterday flying around. So the birds are maybe still here. They're sort of enjoying our weather.
Oh, there's geese.
They haven't come down here, that's for sure.
What'd you say, Desta?
There's a handful of Canadian geese at the dog park by my house here. They were there yesterday. I don't know what's happening with them. Should have left a long time ago now.
No kidding. Yeah, usually when it freezes over, because we do have the ice frozen, the river frozen.
The river now, yeah.
Anyway, thanks everybody for joining, and we will start with whoever may have some sort of experience they want to share or something, or if somebody has a question for Desta or myself.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hey, so the last Mount Shasta thing, are you writing a book on Mount Shasta in general? Or
We're just going to put out the report that we did.
Okay.
So it's just I was going to do a book originally because I was with Ricardo, as you know, in 2017,
Yep.
and we had an event there. And the reason I went to Enrique's event was to sort of balance it out. I didn't want to do because there's sort of like two different sort of versions of things. So I wanted to balance it out. And then when there was so much happened, I figured when it came up about me writing it out, I just wrote it out. Now I don't know where Desta has a better idea of where this thing's at, but you had added some additions you want. Well, maybe we can discuss here, and maybe we can go through this Shasta thing for people who don't know. This is Jeff Sells, who was with me in Mount Shasta, and for people who are not aware, this is sort of like Mission Rama, although they're not really officially Mission Rama people, but they've been trained in this Latino thing that started in Peru. And it's like a C5, I call it like a C5 on steroids. It's sort of, they're able to do a lot of really sort of amazing things in terms of what they call Zendras. The odd time they'll open one of these portal Zendra things. So the basic story is that they go to, a lot of these groups go to Mount Shasta. And when I was there, we were at a bed and breakfast at the bottom of the hill. And we were told by the people who run the bed and breakfast that there's a lot of groups go up on Mount Shasta. It's not just the Rama people. There's all sorts of spiritual people that go up there and have these events. So Jeff and I were with Enrique Villanueva, who runs sort of like an English version of the Mission Rama protocols. He's from Los Angeles. 2 years before, I had been with Ricardo Gonzalez, who does a Spanish version. And it's much, much bigger. A lot of the Spanish people, there's praying for world peace. There's, oming mantras. And it comes down to these sort of events where they're trying to make some sort of CE5 contact. Now, what happened with ours, and this was August of this year, they split off. What they do is they look for what's called, I guess you'd call them in the Mission Rama protocol, like antennas. These are people who are picking up the signal from whatever intelligence they're dealing with. And if there's going to be an encounter, usually there's some sort of message that's given to one or more people as to where this event's going to take place. So what happens is there's a guy by the name of Mario, and we've written this story up. Dest and I have got the story written up, and it may just sort of, we may just put it in a small sort of publication thing where you can get it for like $1.98 on Kindle or whatever. And so what happens is they have a big circle of people who are doing this sort of raising vibration. And what you'll see in seances, I've been working on various people who are doing seances over the year, and there they use a lot of times they use music. There's a group in Illinois that's using ZZ Top to raise the vibration in the group. And so when you raise the vibration, it sort of raises you up, and the beings come down a sort of a notch, and they meet in between, and they have these like a CE5 encounter. So what happens is we're in the group, just to set up the scene for Jeff sort of stepping in here, is that we were in this group, and they were doing the mantras and the meditation and all this kind of stuff. And because this Mario guy had picked up this signal about a triangle of a tree falling over, and so Enrique was following what Mario was saying, and they had this impression about midnight they were to go to the top, higher up in the mountain. I think it's about 150 feet higher than we were, and we were pretty high up. We were about a mile up on the mountain. And so the group breaks up, and this is where Jeff comes in. So Jeff is with the group that has the encounter. I'm still in the group at the bottom of the hill, or at the lower part of the hill. And what happens is when the group breaks up, there's a bunch of cars, people moving around, people start to stop oming and doing the mantras and stuff like that. And what happens is the energy sort of drops off in this circle. They were going to do what's called a crystal ceremony. And the place where it was going to take place, there was very high vibration there. But as soon as people started moving around and going up to get into cars to go up and higher in the mountain, the energy drops off. And so Jeff goes up with a group of 9 other people up onto the top of the mountain. And maybe, Jeff, you can describe what happens there. You actually have an encounter up on the mountain. So maybe you can fill in people and maybe fill in some of the stuff that maybe I've left off as to people understanding what this Mount Shasta event is about. And every year there's 2 of them. Enrique has one there, and Ricardo has one there every year. And people go there. It costs like $100 because they have to bring in toilets and stuff. But people can go there. They can be a part of this whole thing. It goes on for the whole weekend. And usually a bunch of stuff happens there. So go ahead, Jeff.
Hi. Once we get up to the mountain, we had a discussion and about who was going to go further to have an event. Now, Enrique is pretty much in contact. The whole Shasta thing is incredible because of the contact we have. We had some earlier that night, and then we moved up on the mountain, like Grant said. But the thing that was quite unique, and I've never run into this before, where and it seems like every time we have an event where we have contact, it's different than any other thing. So the one we had up there was about a 5 foot wide by 5 foot high. It started with rolling smoke on the top. That's the first thing I noticed, was if you can picture a clear tube with smoke in it, just turning. That's what I saw right in front of me. I mean, it was 18 inches in front of me. And then I felt the contact. I felt confident about the contact. So I diverted from what I normally do, is try to hold the contact. I didn't think it was necessary. It seemed like it was there no matter where my thoughts went. So I looked it over, and that's where I got the dimensions, 5 foot. Yeah, actually, it was probably higher than 5 foot because I was looking up a little bit. So it's probably 6 foot, but the ground was uneven. So not that that matters, but then from the rolling smoke up on top, the tube of rolling smoke all the way down, it was foggy or smoky as well, and went all the way to the ground. And I'm looking it over, and I noticed on the ground, and I got on my knees to look it over better, were clusters of these small lights that were rectangular. They're very small. And there was a 5 foot by 2 foot area that was covered with these lights. The unique thing about these lights was their shape. I've never seen rectangular lights like that. Second thing was that they were colored, all different colors. You know, I've seen white and red lights mostly in the past during contact events, but this was, they were all different colors, blue, green. That's what was unique for me to experience that. So, you know, I was talking with a buddy afterwards, and he says, "Did you try to touch it?" And it just dawned on me then when he asked the question. It's like, no, that I never thought about touching it. So the fellow that was with me, he was up the hill farther. He came back. I told him it was right in front of us. He saw what Enrique saw in his earlier, you know, like a telepathic connection, where he saw, well, how he described it as kind of like a nun with headgear, all white, you know, with the kind of square habit and on top and then the sides. But he says it really wasn't that, but it looked like that. And this figure also had like a USB port in her wrist. So I never saw that, but the other fellow did. He walked into this. He says, "Hey, I saw that lady." And, but to him, it looked a little different. He says it didn't look like clothing. It looked like her hair. He kind of described it as like her hair was real thick, and it reminded me of somebody with dreads, you know. But her hair was white, real thick hair. It kind of unnerved him because it was staring right at him. He did I asked him to put his hands out. He put his hands out. At some point, I saw a red light, and this was a round light. It wasn't like an electronic arc. It wasn't an arc. It was just a red light about the size of a pea. As soon as I saw that light up on his index finger, right hand, he pulled back his hand, said he got shocked. So that was a first. I've never run into having a physical reaction like that, or somebody getting shocked. I've never been around that before. The second thing, after he rotated, he came down. We brought a group of other people up. Marcel was the first one to come up. Marcel put his hands down. He got on his knees, put his hands down in front of it, and he turned around, looked at me. He says, he was just blown away. He says, "It feels like two rectangles are being pressed in my hands." So, you know, after the fact, you look at it, and there's the rectangular lights. There's this rectangular objects being pressed in his hand, you know, and he mentioned that before I mentioned anything about the rectangular lights. So, you know, and the thing previous that we did the day before, we went to another area where there's this door-shaped object, which happens to be a rectangle too. So there's many things that are notable about this experience on the hill. And one again is the rectangular shape. One other thing is that this was positioned in a place on a ridge where if you were to walk through it, for instance, you would fall off a hill, you know, if something else didn't happen. Now, if it was a porthole, you would have been, you would have gone somewhere else. But I look at it as, I think it was deliberately positioned there so that nobody would walk through it. Now, had that been on the level somewhere else, like some Zendras have been, on level ground where people have experienced walking through, I have never done that. I've never been inside a Zendra. I believe I've seen Zendras form, but I've never been that close where it's formed completely, or I haven't experienced it. Other people have. So that's it was a very incredible. You know, I've experienced many things. One thing I've noticed about Mount Shasta is, you know, there seems to be some hot spots there. This this particular one was the first time we experienced that. So I don't think there's necessarily hot spots. I think it's where you set up. That's where the hot spot is.
And that you might be attracting it, because you've had other events like you and Marcel and maybe even Kim. You've done other CE5 events. So you're Wisconsin, right? And you've
Right.
been at like the Stephen Greer events. I was kind of surprised how many people I talked to there who had actually been to Stephen Greer events. Like Marcel's done all the photographic stuff for him. And so maybe talk about some of the other experiences you've had in turn, and sort of maybe to fill in people as to what you think is going on in terms of contact events, because people may not believe that you can actually set up something and actually attract something to come to you.
Okay. So,
Could I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Sure.
How does this all make you feel? Let's get past that. It looks like this.
Well-
It's this big. How does this make you feel?
this, the feeling for me was that's where it all started. I get this, I know you call them downloads. I don't know whether to call it that or not, but it's an intense feeling where, and this is the first time it's happened this way at Mount Shasta for me, where this feeling just comes in through the top of my head and it goes all through my body, and I feel like I'm projecting it. In fact, down on the bottom, or when we were on the hill previous to this one I just talked about, at the same event, that's the first time I've had this come into me that way, through the top. I mean, it's unmistakable. I thought I was projecting it, and as soon as I says ET's right here, because that's the feeling. This is the feeling I get. But I've never had, like I say, that intense coming through the top of my head. Marcel was ahead of me. I felt like I was projecting it, and Marcel turned around and says, "Whoa, you feel that?" And to me, it was kind of funny because I thought I was projecting it. And I don't say that because, I was refraining from talking about it that way because I don't want to feel like I'm special or anything. But I've learned through the Greer events, when ET's nearby, I get this feeling, and I'm not the only one that gets the feeling. You can tell when they're around through experience. It's a very unique feeling, and I don't know how to describe it. It's just an energy you feel, and I know others that get that too. But this particular instance, it was quite intense. But as far as I know Kimberly, she's very tuned in. Marcel's tuned in. I know other people that are tuned in. Enrique's very tuned in. He's a lot more tuned in than I am. He knows. I mean, he's in communication with these. I'm not saying that. I don't think he realized what we were doing when we were away from the group. It was Marcel and Kimberly and myself. I don't think he was aware of what was going on there. But those two knew there was something going on in the area. I was quite sure ET was there. And when they were walking towards that area, I jogged to catch up to them. I didn't have a light. They had a light, So it's pitch dark, but I knew there was things going in the area, and I just knew ET was there. So, and talk about the frequency thing. They brought down their frequency. Our frequency was up. In all of the events I have, the most intense events, other than the object that flew over that helicopter, it's usually it's because of the group. It's the group coherence that brings it in so strong. So I can't bring it in like that. I can feel when they come in. If I'm by myself, it's rare. It's unmistakable because of the feeling. I'm aware of it. But it's like I say, it's the group, and it's what's going on with the group. It's the chanting, it's the oming, it's singing bowls will help. But the frequency, we bring our frequency up, they bring theirs down. I felt like this instance where it came through the top of my head. I've heard other people talk about step down transformers, and that kind of fits with this. Normally, I look at the step down transformer thing as the group raising they act as a transformer where they bring down the ET's frequency, and we meet in the middle somewhere. They do the best they can, we do the best I can, or we can, and whatever happens. In this case, it the things we saw were different. Kimberly felt like she is being enclosed in like some kind of rolling energy, like a fog rolled in around her. She was enveloped in it. She was asking for Marcel, called out to his name five times before he heard her. I don't remember while that event was happening. I remember about 30 seconds. They say it went on for 3 to 5 minutes. So I remember how it started. I remember asking Kimberly, I say, what do you see? She says she sees 2 light beings right in front of her. And then that was about it after that. So then I remember her ending it, saying, I got to walk away from this. Now, here's the deal. What I would like to do in the future is to have, we're supposed to have buddies. We got to have a buddy system, a better buddy system, where somebody's right behind us. An event like that can wear you out, and I think it should continue as long as they're there. I think we should continue to try to get it to solidify in some way, instead of just having this strange rolling smoke and these strange lights and things, to actually get more coherent. If we can work on that, that's what I'd like to do. But not to change the subject, but I remember Paula Harris, she had a heck of an experience. We had an experience in 2017. That's all in the same area surrounding the Sand Flats there. So, we're going to make plans to do a little more, have better protocols going forward. But
When is the event this year? Do you have the exact date? I think
no, I
it's
haven't had the exact date, and we are going to get together a group of us to go over some protocols so that we can approach this at a better, more informed level.
so anybody maybe that wants to attend, we can maybe put up the link for them. People, if they can contact me, and whenever it comes up, Desta and I will provide the link to them as to where to go and what actually happens there. But you sort of get led through it, right? I mean, if you're a newcomer, like
Yeah.
I know, some of the stuff sort of blew me away with the exercises and stuff. I'm going like, what the heck's going on here? It's like kind of new. It was different than Ricardo does. But in terms of C5s, I think you'd probably agree that a lot of them are using the same sort of protocol in terms of trying to raise the vibration and stuff like that, like the other one, because you've been in a number of events, right?
Right. Yeah. That's it. It's all, the experience is all depends on that, and who's there. I mean, if somebody's there to exploit the thing, you might not have results like you would normally with people getting coherent and on the same page. To drop your ego. I know a lot of people do things differently, but we're here at this event. This is how we're going to do it. Everybody gets coherent, and see what you can add to it once we get going. That's, and what I would like to do is for the whole group of people to experience everything. I mean, the thing that Marcel and Kimberly and I experienced, had there been people behind us, they could have notified other people. I think, and I can speak more positively about what happened up on the hill. I mean, that same thing happened where the power came through my head. It's right in front of me. I think we can get more people to experience these things. And I wish it would have worked out for the crystal ceremony. When I did it, the whole group did it, and everybody experienced things that were a little different. But this was new to me for having the group split off, and that disrupted the energy. So there was still energy, but there wasn't coherence, after we split up. But so that's what I want to do to move forward.
Beautiful. Anybody else have these kind of experience? I know Desta actually goes around the world. She's the world traveler. She's actually been to Spain, once or twice to events like this?
I just was in Ricardo's, last year I went to the Pyrenees to see him.
But you had the event. Maybe describe the event that you had at Colorado this year, right?
Oh, he goes to, Paula Harris has her yearly conference, I guess, with Ricardo in Crestone, Colorado. And I've gone, maybe this is 3 years in a row. maybe. So it's the
I
same
do.
thing that he does at Shasta, which is like you were saying, basically the same thing that Enrique does. So they do the protocols, and he lectures during the day in the community center, and then at night we go out and do CE5s in the at the foot of the mountains in Crestone on Paula's land. She has land in the back of there.
But the event happened with just 3 of you after the event, right? There's nothing happens, and then you got to tell me the story because I've only heard little rumors of it. You have the event happen after everybody else sort of shuts down and takes off.
Well, yes. That was so last year, or yeah, I think it was 2018. I was staying in we were staying in an Airbnb, Paula Cambly, which is Ricardo's translator, and I, and we didn't have much in the form of sightings during the CE5 that we were doing. But we went back to our place, and we had a beautiful balcony overlooking at the foot of the mountains there. And we just went out and we're talking about the weekend or whatever. And yeah, we had an hour and a half of balls of light coming out of the mountain, flashing super bright lights at us, and turning red, and orbs moving up and down and all around and chasing each other around. And yeah, for an hour and a half. And we were very surprised because we were all together, and we told the story to everyone that was there the following morning. And Paula was sure it was Antarel, who was the Apunian being that Ricardo was in contact with. And you know, Ricardo thought that maybe the group wasn't ready. There's too many people in the group, or there was, you know, some people that weren't ready for it. And that's sometimes, even when I was in Spain last year with there's sometimes where not a lot of things happen, or you have to, like for your experience, Jeff, and everyone that was there, you have to break into groups of people because some people are, you know, ready for it or meant for it, or it's going to do something for them, but maybe the group together isn't as cohesive as, you know, they should be, or some people are too scared or too, you know, not in their right meditative state, or however you want to say it. So so Ricardo said that we weren't going to see anything when we were with the group, but he didn't say anything else, and obviously maybe didn't know anything else. But yeah, we were very lucky to be sitting there in this beautiful house that we rented, and a beautiful balcony overlooking, and there was lightning and stuff in the background the entire night that we were you know, doing the meditation outside, not raining, but totally surrounded for hours that we were outside with lightning. So it was a beautiful night, and we were right in front of the mountains, and we had a light show that was amazing for us for hours. Yeah, so we were very lucky. And so perhaps, you know, Ricardo said maybe it was Antarel that was just trying to say thank you, because it was Paula putting on the event, and Kembly, of course, who's very good friends with Ricardo and does all the translations for him. And I just happened to be there, so.
Beautiful. Has anybody else had these kind of experiences in terms of C5s? I know they had, like you were in Spain, and they got some photographs, daylight photographs of UFOs. You weren't involved in that. And then the girl from Chris from Paris, I'm lecturing in England, and that's when she shows me the photographs of the beings that they photographed. I still haven't got her to maybe hand these things over, but I mean, it was just amazing. 3 photographs, and in the third one, you could clearly see like these sort of like energy beings or whatever. It was just really bizarre. Like, you never know what's going to happen at these events, and yet it's not the sort of like an alien walks up to you and says, how you doing, and stuff like that. It's almost like I'm doing a lot of work with these physical mediums now, and what you see is the same sort of thing when they raise the vibration and it's dark, and then, you know, people will get tapped on the shoulder, or you'll have balls of light flying around the room and stuff like that. It's almost the same sort of thing, which makes you sort of think that maybe this is really closely linked phenomena. It's all the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, Kat was with us in 2017. How you doing, Kat?
Good. Oh, let's see. Am I muted? Oh no. Okay. Yeah. No. Good.
Kat is in Washington, D.C., right down the street from the FBI, right? She's LinkedIn. She's got all the answers there. Go ahead, Kat. You were with us in 2017, correct?
Yes.
And you missed the one this year. You're going next year, correct? To which one? To Enrique's or to Ricardo's?
Both. I'm gonna go to both. I'm super excited.
Wow.
And I think I may be transferring to San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like seriously, it was like some divine intervention or something because you know, I had told you recently that LA had put a freeze on transfers and that
Yeah.
I was kind of bummed because I was gonna have to be stuck out here on the East Coast and no, like I got a call like 2 days ago. A friend of mine left San Francisco and they said, "Do you want to transfer out here?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "That'll put me 5 hours away from Mountain Shasta."
Yeah.
So really, it's just incredible. Like because I was wondering, you know, how I was gonna be traveling twice next year to make it out there, and now I don't even have to worry about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It worked out for you. Can describe the event. You were sitting beside me at Mount Shasta in 2017. Maybe describe the event that happened that night.
Yeah. So you know, on your way to Mount Shasta, Paula had received a message saying that Ricardo had said that Aunt Terrell had said that they knew that you were coming to the mountain and that they wanted to welcome you and so when we were sitting there that night, and you know, several people had gotten a message about 9:33 and then sure enough at 9:33 Ricardo says there they are, and so we look up and it was, you know, and the craft was located right above where you were sitting, but it would but smack right above your head, so to look up to see it you had to really,
Yeah.
you know, put your head back. And so we looked up and you could tell there was a craft there. It was high up but you could still see it there. And then Ricardo said, gosh, this is really like surprising that the craft is located right above where Grant is sitting. And I felt like it was like really nice of them to sort of say thank you for coming. Like it was like a gesture. I felt like it was like a gesture. And then they started to flash these blue flashes. And I kept looking up and then my neck would get kind of tweaked. So I would look down and then I'd look up again. And in one of the in one of the times I looked up, there was this gigantic blue flash. I mean, it was just huge. And everybody was like, wow, what, you know, it was pretty amazing. And later on in the message that Ricardo received, the psychographic message that he received afterward, they said that everybody there on the mountain was being coded with this blue light, and that they were that it was like a code, and that there were different teams of people working on this cosmic plan, and that your research would lead to other research, and that eventually humanity would be able to connect the dots or connect the pieces that were like a puzzle, that were like part of a puzzle. And I really feel like that's happening. And you know, Michael Sala was there the same weekend we were there. Michael Sala, who had also been at one of Ricardo's events, he was there with Corey Good on another part of the mountain. And
An event, yeah. They had an event. He told me about it. Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know if you would be able to talk about it, but I know you talked with Michael Sala at some point after that, and
Yeah.
didn't he also have an experience while he was there?
Yeah, he had an event that's similar to Jeff. Jeff has a photograph. Maybe you can line up your photo there, Jeff, and maybe take over the screen in a second. What Sala described to me, and they were on the other side of the mountain, was the fact that it was like a I don't want to misquote him. It was like a wall. They
Like
had,
a curtain of light or something?
a
Like
curtain of light, that he was walking through this through the forest, and it came to this like curtain of light, and he was with somebody else, and he said, "What is that?" And they walked in. I can't remember how long it was, 100 yards or something like that. They walked through this, And then when he got back, he took his wife out the next day, and he wanted to show her this, and he couldn't find the spot again. He couldn't even find where he'd walked. And so it was the same sort of thing. And Jeff has a photo, which maybe he can show us. I think this was taken in Wisconsin, of a curtain, like a wall of light in the forest where he films this thing. So you get these things linking up, the same as when we had our experience in 2017. There's you and I and Desta were there. And they had the 933. That's when I realized that Enrique was across the street. And I remember people telling me, no, don't talk to that guy. No, he's, whatever, and all this thing. And I'm going, no, I wonder if they saw the 933. I wonder if they saw something. And I was determined, no, I'm going to go talk to this guy. I'm going to find out what's going on across the street and see what happened to them. And that was when I contacted, maybe a month later, I contacted Enrique and said, we had this thing happening on our side of the road. What do you guys see? And he had the 908 thing where they see, I don't know if Marcella's here, but up to 24 beings, like tall ones, short ones, this girl at the bottom of this tree that sort of disappears, and this orb of light. And it was like a circus compared to what was going on our side of the road. And that's when I started to realize, like, all these events are happening. And that's why I wanted to sort of document some of this stuff, is because a lot of people really don't know that this kind of stuff happened. I wouldn't have known if it hadn't been for, like, as you know, every morning they have a sort of a debriefing session where people can talk about what has happened the day before. And as I said, like, they were doing this, Enrique was doing this thing with the yoga, hold this pose for 4 minutes, hold this pose for 4 minutes. And I said it, not jokingly. I mean, if it had been dark, I would have left. I mean, I would have gone. I was going to do this stupid, because I was not used to it. I was getting killed there. I was dying. And then they did Kim does this breathing thing, and it was very, very stressful. But when they started talking about the experiences after that was over, then I'm going like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool, because people were talking about stuff, but usually people don't open up about it. And we realized that all this stuff was going on, and I didn't know what was going on, but just very bizarre stuff. Like, even the night, the Saturday night where Enrique talks about 4 o'clock in the morning, he comes out of the tent or comes out of the bathroom to go to bed, and the mountain is lit up. It looked like Telos, like the entire mountain was lit up with all these lights, and there are no lights on the mountain. It's like totally covered with snow, and you'd be crazy to be climbing on the mountain in the middle of the night, because it's very, very dangerous, with ice and stuff like that. So it's quite incredible to have these sort of experiences where it's different than hearing someone else tell the story. You'd experience it yourself, but there's a lot of stuff goes on at these events. So Jeff, do you have that wall thing? Because this
I
is.
I thought I was sharing it right now, but I'm not, huh?
Yeah, we don't see your screen. We just see you. So go to the top. Go to the bottom of the screen for the green there. Take that share.
Yeah, I hit the share.
And then at the top it should say. Oh, here. Yeah, that's your tree, right?
Well, this is just a picture. That's my
Okay.
desktop.
That's your desktop. So pull up the. Because whatever is on your desktop is what we're going to see. So you got to open it up on your desktop, the photo.
Yeah. Okay, so I got the photo opened on my screen. I don't know why you don't see it.
Oh, I don't know.
And it's different. It's sharing different than it has before.
Wow.
So
Well, here, try again.
Okay, I'll try again here. Yeah, this is all different than when I've shared before. So I have this. It's up on my screen right now, but it's not sharing for some reason.
Wow. Okay, so maybe describe. So you're in Wisconsin. They have events where you're in Michigan. They have these C5 events, or is it an event in Wisconsin?
Yeah, well, it was the first time we did this in Wisconsin. Melissa put it together, a group of us. So we did a 3-day thing there, and what happened was there's a couple of weird things that happened. One was, a lot of us have seen satellites go through the air, go through the sky. This one, every time, it was just like a rotating satellite. Every time it rotated, it'd flash us. Now, normally when you get a rotating satellite, you see some flashes, but this thing was from horizon to horizon, or from the whole time was in view. It was like it was pointed at us. It flashed bright 40 times as it transversed the sky. That was a little different. I've never experienced that. I can't, I don't know what that was. It's just, I've seen ETs take control or have vehicles that look like airplanes. I'm not going to get into all the specifics with that, but
And Marcel filmed that, right?
yeah, if they can take care or represent or have a form of an airplane,
Yeah.
Except there's a few things wrong with it. I'm a pilot, so I know what to look for with aircraft. But they could certainly do that with a satellite too. But that's, I can't prove any of that, and it's just speculation, I guess. But it was different. So the other thing that was strange was that I saw this wall. And I've seen this at other events. The other events I've seen this at was in the desert where it's really dry. And for a wall of fog to develop in the desert when there's a 25-degree difference in the dew point is just, there's no fog's gonna develop when there's a 25-degree difference in dew point. So, but anyways, I've seen these walls, hundreds of yards long, 10, 12 feet high, 15 maybe, in the distance. I've never went to explore them. Well, this time in Wisconsin, it was a little different. I see this wall form. I had two cameras on the tripod. One's in infrared, and one takes normal pictures, normal visible light pictures. So I see this form. It didn't appear to be a fog wall, but it was a wall nonetheless. I think it looks like a shadow, some sort of shadow. But remind you that it's dark. It's 11 o'clock at night. It's dark. So it's in front of the forest, the line of trees too. Now, when I saw it, I thought it was at the edge of the forest. I'm looking around, what could be producing this shadow? What could be producing this form? Because it seemed to be, I don't know what the word is, symmetrical or whatever. I mean, I wish I could show the picture. I'll keep looking for the picture, but so this wall was about 12 foot high. I'm saying maybe 180 feet long, 200 feet long. I took a picture with the infrared camera and with the other camera, the visible light camera. It only showed up in the infrared camera. Now the infrared camera is actually full spectrum. It's visible light through 2000, I don't know what they call them, nanometers or whatever they use, but visible lights from like 100 to 700. This full spectrum is up to 2000. So hey, you got it.
Yeah, I found it. You gave me a copy. So here it is. So this helps describe what we're looking at here.
Yeah. Okay. So this fence, if you see the fence line on the bottom there, that fence is like a 4 foot high fence. So that gives you how high it is. It's probably 10 to 12 foot high. And you can see where it ends on the right. Now the color's off. Now this is an enhanced color. It's kind of, otherwise it's kind of a reddish color. So the blue just makes it so you can see it better. Now I have to remind everybody, this is after 11 o'clock at night, so it's really black. It's really dark here. Camera brings all this out. There's a couple things to notice on this wall too, is that I could see it, but the visible light camera didn't pick it up. So I walked to that pole. Can you see my mouse or no?
No.
Okay. Well, the main pole, just right of center there. When I was looking at this, I thought this wall was at the forest behind it, because this pole just right of center is just about 30 feet towards us from the forest. I walked and I put my hand on that pole when I was walking over towards it, and I felt something. I could feel just a real subtle energy there. And I thought, well, that's a little weird. I'm not to the wall yet. I was thinking it was back to the forest. So when I got to the forest edge, I didn't feel anything. I thought, well, I didn't know what to make of that. But there's a couple things to notice on this picture here. You notice the concave or the convex shape that starts at the fence post, right in center, bottom center of the picture. There's like a little ball there too.
Yeah, it looks like a little orb sitting there.
That little ball is not there in the visible picture, or it's just in this infrared picture. I think that ball is probably just behind the fence. But there's an arcing shape that goes off to the right. There's like an arcing thing. So I don't know what all that represents, but the whole thing, the picture itself is probably the first picture anybody's gotten of one of these walls that we've, that form. That's some sort of perimeter. A lot of times, the bigger ones we see out in the desert, people have said, and I don't know if this is true, I can't prove it or not, but they say that's the perimeter of a cloaked craft that's just hovering above the ground.
Is it possible that that is
Some sort of flare or something? Is that the question? I lost you.
You cut off. Try again. The orb is kind of interesting. I'd never noticed that before. The
Yeah,
orb.
that fuzzy orb there.
We blow it right up here.
And it's right, and then that arcing shape comes off of it too.
is it possible that that is not a wall, but the space between?
It's all I can, we call it the wall because it looks like a wall, that's all. I don't know what it is. It's some sort of energy. But the thing is, I could see it with my physical eyes. I can see it in the visual spectrum. For some reason, the visual or the other camera couldn't pick it up.
You
But
guys have
this is,
some pretty good camera equipment.
It really is what I for some reason that's what I sense is that is a space between,
that could
and
be.
things are coming through that.
Yeah. Well, people did see. I didn't see it, but other people did see orbs along that in there. So I didn't see that, and I didn't see this white one there that kind of in the bottom center of the picture. I didn't see that either, but I did see the wall. I did see there was some. To me, it looked like a black shadow.
So it could be dimensional, correct?
I have no idea.
The one interesting thing is, like, and I can show a picture of a Zendra in a second, but I mean that's the shape of a Zendra. Those two sort of rainbow lines there.
Okay, sure.
That's how a Zendra opens up. It's that kind of thing, and it's that kind of fog stuff that the Zendra has. It's just this one has a straight line across the top, which a Zendra doesn't have. But
Well,
if you
there
take away the
is-
wall and you just have those two lines, that would be like a Zendra.
There is a higher arc that goes to the top of the wall and then it comes back down. Did you see
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
two arcs there. There's one
Two
above.
arcs in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's something going on. Yeah.
But it's like you mentioned that they're never two the same, which I found.
Right.
Like I'm working on this whole thing with ports and physical mediums and stuff. And it's the same thing. There's no two ports that are the same thing. Like it's
Yeah.
never the same. It's sort of a pattern I sort of keep to myself that when people are
Yeah.
describing it, because it's almost like a unique phenomenon. Every time they appear, it's a little bit different than the way they appeared before.
Right. Yeah, it is. That is noteworthy. I mean, I've seen a lot of different things. I've seen craft. I've seen a lot of weird things, and it's never the same from one event to the next. Now that's not to say that at Rama, I think they pretty much work with one set of ETs, and they have,
But
well,
still, you have different events. Like 2014, he showed up as a solid being. In 2015, he was sort of like a hologram. And then when 2017, I don't know if you know that Sixto Paz was there. You remember where who was it? It was Cameron and Peter were describing this possible Zendra on the north side there. Well, apparently Sixto Paz actually opened a Zendra there in 2017 in that sort of open area behind there.
Yeah.
And so you get these sort of things where it's the same thing, but it's sort of never completely. Oh, there's Zendra. I'm just looking for a photo of a Zendra. No, I don't have it here. Okay, go ahead. Anybody else want to jump in with a question or a comment about something that they've seen that might be similar to this while I look for a picture of a Zendra?
Well, hello. I haven't been in a group, but I do know that if they're in the bedroom, I do feel them. They like me asleep when they get near me. And
How
the
do-
ones, go ahead.
How do they come in and out? How does that happen with you?
There are times I'm sort of half asleep or on the way. They think I'm asleep, and I know they're there, and they either put me to sleep or they leave. They don't seem to want me. And at one time, one day it was very high energy. I was walking around at work on a plant floor, and I seemed to get in contact with somebody with a voice in my head. It was high energy. I don't remember everything it said, but they spoke perfect, fast, very fast English with perfect punctuation and grammar, and they would correct you with any tiny mistake that you would make. But I was showing manners. They were showing manners, and within a minute or two, I didn't feel like talking, and they said like thank you, goodbye. And then I had the worst tinnitus for a couple of weeks after that, after the energy came down.
Who do you think you're dealing with?
That time, I'm guessing it was Eben or Grays. They were not nice, not bad. They were just like very, very fast talking, almost like computerized, very intelligent. But any little mistake on your sentence or grammar, you made a mistake there. You made a mistake there. I didn't really want to have a conversation for too long with them. But it was right in my head.
What were they discussing?
I don't remember it. It was when I was in the energy, I could remember it. When I was out of it, it's gone.
Oh, so it's one of these download things where you lose it after.
Yeah, but right afterwards, I had tinnitus for a good 2 or 3 weeks, driving me nuts until it went away.
Did you say tendonitis?
Yeah, it was the sound in your head.
Oh, okay.
And one thing I'm hoping is good for me, since I have diabetes, in the last few weeks, they showed up. They put me somewhere, I'm not sure how, held me down and put this big needle into my belly button, my navel, but they allowed me to know sometime later about it left a big needle mark in there, and there's a scab. And when I went through Leslie Mitchell Clark when I wanted to see her, I got somebody with like a big drill with a big needle into my stomach. I'm not angry, and I'm not that. I'm hoping they I think I got a message from them. They're putting in some 1.5 inch long tiny black beady thing into my body. And I'm hoping that was true, because I'm going through a blood test soon.
But you've had experiences, Carl, your whole life, right?
Oh yeah.
And you think it's always grays?
No, the people I was dealing with, they're like a secret space program. So one of them in the same plant, it's like I'm talking to somebody and I notice something's wrong. My stomach is a bit off, and then I feel a little tinge of pain on a finger. And then I know somebody was there. And later on, I'll go through some automatic art or writing, and there is it's humanoid with a more squarish, whitish head with ridges, roundish black eyes. And they're just taking a sample from my left knuckle, two tiny samples from my left knuckle, and they wanted to know that they had been there. It's like they opened up a little time bubble, and I had my stomach feeling a little bit queasy for a while, but I was okay.
How many regressions? You talk about Leslie and her practice for people that might be in the area, because she's a big regressionist there. She just came out with a book, right?
Yes, that was with she and Wes. They covered some of Wes's material in that book.
How many times have you been regressed by her?
At least 15, 20 times.
And do you get something new every time?
This last one, I don't go a lot now, but this last one I covered 4 small incidents that I remembered. That one at work, and there was the other one was okay, that one. 1 second. Oh yeah, another one neat one in the bedroom. They didn't bother taking me away, but they helped me. I was having an allergy reaction and I couldn't sleep. It was 1, 2 in the morning. And basically I was thinking I was going nuts and I couldn't see it, but my left hand was beside a wall. And a hand came out of the wall felt like a warm gloved hand. It held my hand for about 5-10 seconds or so. I didn't freak out. I just went calm. It let me go and it was gone. I felt the wall. And right afterwards, I was calmed down and I could breathe and I could sleep. And I didn't really care who it was, that I could actually sleep and not stay up all night type thing. It's like small things like that.
Would you recommend regression for people who are confused about what's going on?
Yes. I needed it because what I found out was good, bad, disgusting, and partially what I had done with the people. But it's like this: if there's some traumatic stuff back there and it's starting to come out in bubbles of anger, pain, whatever, your emotions aren't in control, you have to get this out. And it's nice remembering, like I did, me and my partner flying a craft. That was great.
Okay, tell me about that. I'm interested in that. I like that kind of stuff.
Okay, the first one, I was actually in my car driving home and I got a flashback. And it turns out that the first time me and my partner, and we were in about 20s, 30, early 30s, 31, we got a chance to do a test for if we could qualify for the pilot's program. And
Okay.
so we were taken to it's like a desert area. And the first test was, we were standing by, it's like a ski box carrier, a black shiny ski box carrier, 6 feet long, 2 feet wide, and about a foot thick. And you put on a helmet, a really neat helmet. It's like a round bubble helmet. It was white with the black stripes, with some object over your eye and 2 antennas sticking up. But with it on, you flew this box, anti-gravity box, in as if you were flying. And it was really fun. I got it back. My partner did it. And before we went out, we were talking in an office. There's a map full of pinpricks all over North America. And then we were taken out by Jeep to a landed, let's call it a used disc UFO with the door open. We got to test it for a test. And we just sat in it in the metallic chair, and I'm not sure if there's any hand things that you hold, but the computer on the craft connects to your brain and you see a virtual reality. It's as if you're sitting on a disc and with a clear glass around you, and as you move, you don't feel anything, but we had to do certain things. We did it, and that was so much fun. Up, down, sideways, even like going from Mach 3 or 4 and stopping. There's no movement. The view was amazing. So we passed that test, and then we got to go on a 20-year flight program as a pilot. And it was up by Saturn on a Ball station. It was the training. And there's another smaller craft that we had to master. As a single-seater. And I remember is that when I was doing my exercises on one of these, I was out by the rings were beautiful. It was like giant or small water crystals, moving, touching, snapping, but with the light, it was truly amazing. And I could go on.
Yeah. You mentioned secret space program. I mean, is the government involved in this from your experiences? Do they know what's
I,
going on? Do they have the understanding of the technology and what's we're involved here? And especially when you come to flying the craft, because you're talking about this sort of interaction with the craft where you're sort of flying it with your mind or your brain or whatever.
yes, yeah, it's a virtual reality. I know that, for example, when I was a teenager, 18, I had, okay, about 14, I that asked me to join up and help, and my alternate personality, that when I did this, I was in with an alternate personality. So at oh man, basically lots of training, but basically yes.
And
So I just lost it.
so, but Leslie recovered all this through regression, correct?
Yeah, I would usually have a small memory that wasn't always correct, and then once you start this, you get a flashback. And this flashback may come at any time, and then you go, oh, so there's more to it. Then you see her, and you see what more that you can pull out of it.
Let me ask you a question, then I'll maybe turn it to everybody else to maybe people jump in. What do you think's going on? What, like, are you on a mission? What are we really dealing with when we talk about the intelligence behind the UFO phenomena? What do you think? And then I'll throw it out to other people what they think is actually going on here.
I believe that there's a level of organization above our governments that are part of what's called the secret space program type thing. It isn't just one, and it's changing. So they wanted me as part to play a part to put this information out as one and do a job. So for a time, I had to do training. I had to do things on the planet, good and bad, out of body including it. And now it's more, I'm supposed to talk to you like this and go to the ACE conventions and stuff like that and get it out. And
Who are your
well,
instructions from? Are your instructions from the government or from the beings?
I just feel I don't have okay, my instructions, the closest thing is when I think of should I be still with them or not, I get a most direct picture of I'm in a room, it's an office, there's a small table. I'm sitting across from a gray, like senior tall gray, and a military officer. On the table is a manuscript, and there's a contract with a pen. And at first, I was reluctant to sign or go any further because of what I've got out from these memories. Sometimes isn't very nice for me or anyone else.
Yeah.
But it's like, you want more information, you want to get this out, you are going to work with us part-time. You're a part of the system still. And I think that's part of why that needle procedure was for me to help me, that one of my benefits, the medical benefits of being in this program was that their medical procedures are really advanced than what we have now, much more advanced.
Let me throw it out to everybody else. Has anybody else got an opinion? What are we actually dealing with? What is this UFO phenomenon all about? Is there an end goal to this? Why have we all been dragged into this through whatever means? Anybody got any insight?
I have some ideas, Grant.
Sure.
I think that, I don't know anything for sure, just like anybody else. And I've had really odd experiences my whole life. But I feel that we are multi-dimensional beings ourselves. And that some of these things that happen to us are part of, we are experiencing that. We are literally experiencing it, and somehow it intersects with this person that is me right now.
Okay.
I think maybe I'm kind of one of the woo-woo people that we are all one and all that, but I have what I consider past life memories, but I no longer consider them something that happened to me in the past. I think and feel deeply that these things are all happening at the same time, and that sometimes I can tap into it, sometimes not so much. I will tell you that I know I mentioned this to you a while back. I had a stroke back in May. And that kind of shifts your perspective too, because this is about your brain and the way you think. And I remember right after the stroke, I was lucky enough to be able to talk after about 4 days. But I was kind of worried that maybe some of these experiences would disappear, or that maybe I'd imagined all this all these years. And this is one of those things that will strike some people as, well, that's no big deal. And other people will go, oh, that's interesting. But what happened was about, I spent the first month after the stroke in the hospital and in therapy. And then I went and lived with my son and his family for a month until I could get some things in order here at my house so that I could function here. And after 2 months, I came back home. And one night, my partner and I were in bed asleep when we heard this huge crash inside the house. I mean, it was right down the hallway in one of the other bedrooms. And he got up and he ran down the hall, and he didn't see anything. And our dog was still asleep in her kennel. We don't know what it was. So he comes back into the bedroom, and as soon as he comes back in the bedroom, all of a sudden there is this noise of like something trying to come down a chimney. And it went on for several seconds. It was very scary. It was like somebody's coming down the chimney. Now I realized, and I have a chimney that it would be very hard for anything to just come down the chimney because of the way it's made.
Okay.
But I said, shut the flue, make sure the flue was shut. And he shut the flue, and then all of a sudden the sound stopped. But what was real interesting, it really scared us. It was very scary at first, and then it took us a few minutes to get our bearings. And all of a sudden, I heard owls hooting on the roof, and it was so weird that I thought, I'm okay. Things are back to normal, and they're letting me know I'm okay and things will be okay. And it was weird, but it happened. I don't know where it came from, who it was, or if it was just me imagining this, but all I know is Richard experienced it too, and I thought it was a beautiful thing.
Lots of people. Is that your only encounter with owls? Because as you know, Mike Clellan has written a book, two books on owls. And, everybody, once in a while, I come up against somebody, or Candace is on here with robins and rabbits and sort of like screen imaging things where you're being given these messages through animals, or if they are animals, or whether they're screen images. Is that the only experience you had with owls? And how far does your experience go back? All the way back to childhood?
I've been having experience with owls for a long time. The one just prior to that I guess it's been probably about 1.5 years ago now. And we heard an owl on the roof coming, and we have 2 chimneys. We have one in the bedroom, one downstairs in the den. And it was like he was right on the chimney. And I remember we wanted to keep the dog quiet because we didn't want to scare the owl away. And Richard says, I'll run out and look. And sure enough, he comes running back. He says, it's not one owl, there's 2 owls sitting on the chimney, 2 great horned owls. And it was nighttime. There was a big full moon. And so we spent about a half hour going back and forth. He'd come in and watch the dog, then I'd run out and watch him, and then he'd come back in. And we went back and forth like that for about half an hour. And then the last time I went out, this was beautiful to me. They're huge owls. They're not little tiny birds. And they were both sitting there talking to each other on the chimney. And I could see them as plain as day, even though it was nighttime and it was a big full moon. And I said, what the heck are you guys doing up there? And they both turned and looked at me. I mean, they looked right at me. And then they flew away. But this was the most interesting part. as they were flying away, all of a sudden I saw this ball of light follow them as they flew away.
What?
So I've had other incidents with owls, but that was the most recent one before my stroke. And so the way I've seen actual UFOs and lights in the sky and all that, but this is all so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger than ETs or beings from another world. It is very special. And I hope that everybody will keep their minds wide open with how beautiful this all could eventually be for us.
Yeah.
If we keep our minds open.
I agree. Let me tell a quick couple stories, and then I'll throw it up to anybody else who's got owl stories or other animal stories. People know I'm good friends with Chris Bledsoe, and I was with him. And of course, when the owl thing came up, I questioned him. I said, "Chris, you ever have any owls?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, there's owls all the time." And so he describes the one. And as you know, when he first had his experience, he had a very trying time. He's in a very religious community. He was sort of ostracized and thrown out for his church for dealing with the devil, and had a real tough time. And he used to sit in his room in the house, and he didn't talk to his wife. She didn't want to talk about it. He wasn't allowed to talk to kids about it. So he said, well, the one owl used to sit on top of the CB radio tower. And what had happened is, because he wasn't talking to his family and he wasn't talking to his kids, he went and bought a CB radio and this 100-foot tall tower. And he installed this tower. And even though he wasn't talking to his family, he was talking to people, truckers driving by and stuff like that. And I said, the owl was sitting on top of the CB radio tower. And what had happened was he had one night, there was a thunderstorm going on. And he went to the front door, and the tower, the 100-foot tower, got hit by lightning. And he said if he'd been sitting in the room, or he usually was sitting in the living room, he would sit there and sleep on the couch and stuff. And he said he would have been dead. And so what happened was the back half of the house burned down. And that's when I said to him, I said, "Oh, I know why the owl was sitting there." He said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, because they're trying to get you out of the house. They wanted you to carry the message. You wouldn't carry the message. So they burned the house down to get you out of the house." I don't think he agreed with me. And the other funny thing was, people don't really realize maybe the connection to owls. I know Desta and I have a friend in California who told a story about the 5-foot owl sitting in the bathroom on the counter. And so people sort of look at it, but they don't really realize how weird this kind of stuff is. And Chris Bledsoe's wife, I remember I was there, and she was always like, "This isn't my thing. I'm really not into this. This is Chris. I really not," all this sort of stuff. And she had a collection of cups. Just, "Want to see my latest cups?" I go, "Yeah, okay." And she comes and she's got these 2 owl cups. And she was so proud to show me these 2 out of the 100 cups or whatever she had, coffee cups, these 2 owl cups. And I'm going, "Oh, wow." She had no idea what she was showing me. And it was just bizarre that this, her husband was this major sort of experiencer. So anybody else got stories with, either with the idea of who we're dealing with, or with these encounters where they seem to drag in screen images of different animals?
I've got owl stories.
Go ahead.
Well, before I moved at my old house, there was an owl, and he was there for many years. And when I would go outside, he would be up in a tree, just looking at me. The dog used to go crazy about the owl. But one day I was outside, and I went into the shed to get the blower out. I was going to blow some leaves. And I looked up, and the owl was sitting on the fence, like 3 feet from me, just sitting there peacefully looking at me. So I stared at it for a moment because it scared me. And then I told it to wait for me because I wanted to go get the camera. I actually told the owl, "Wait for me right here." And he did. I went inside and got the camera and told my son, "Come and look at this owl." And he waited, and he was out there, and he sat there while we photographed him for like 20 minutes, really good shots of this owl. And then for a split second, I looked down at the screen on my camera, and I looked up, and it was gone. I didn't hear a sound. But that was my close encounter with the owl. He had been there for a long time. Then when I sold the house and moved, one night I had all the remodeling going on in my new place, so I was staying at my sister's house. And one night I left, and it was just before dark. And as I was pulling out and I turned and was heading up the drive, this large bird, I saw him coming at me, and it was an owl. And the same kind of owl. I think he followed me over here. So he swooped down at the car, and I slammed my brakes because I thought it was going to slam into the windshield, but it just swooped right over the top of the car and was gone. And I think he's still out there. My sister was here the other day. It was at night. She was coming in. She said, "Did you know you got an owl outside?" I said, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, I just heard one." I said, okay. But I really wanted to talk about the orb that was in the Zendra that Jeff has.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if anybody else, I've kind of been kind of quiet lately and taking a back seat to all the weirdness. So something's trying to get my attention though, because lately I've been seeing all this UFO activity out my greenhouse window that sits here off my kitchen.
Yeah.
And it's floor to ceiling, so I'm always looking at the sky. So I've been seeing these odd UFO type objects. One was morphing next to like a jet trail, chemtrail, whatever they call them, that sit there for a long time. And I went to get my camera. Well, prior to that, when I had taken some pictures up above my head outside of a trail, because I like to just photograph clouds for some reason. And I was pulling them onto the desktop from the camera, and I noticed there was like a speck in the picture, and I thought it was on my computer screen. So I was trying to wipe it off, and I couldn't. So as I cropped in on the picture, I noticed it was one of those orange orb things that I've seen before. And it was directly above my head, up past that trail and way up in the atmosphere, because it was tiny, a tiny dot. But as I zoomed in on it, I saw that it was a light, like an orange, red orange orb type thing. And there seemed to be some kind of construction around it, but you know, it was so far away, so high up, you couldn't really make it out. And then the other thing I saw was something morphing. Now this happened lower. It was lower in the sky. It almost looked like a transparent bubble type object, but it was morphing and reflecting the sun. So I ran and got the camera. It was still there, but everything I tried, my camera would not work to take a picture of it. It was the weirdest thing. I mean, I was frantic trying to get a picture of this thing, and I was changing every setting I possibly could for anything to work, and my camera would not take a picture. I have a Canon, you know, a digital Canon. So the other thing I saw, I had the same problem with the camera, but I caught the tail end of it. It was like a reddish tinted object that went across the sky, and it was like distorted. It almost looked cloud-like. And I just got the tail end of that. I did get it on a picture, but it was so far away at that time. When you blow it up and look at it, it doesn't look good. But that's all been recent. And then this is my question about the orb in the Zendra picture, because, okay, I'm having new experiences now with, I don't know if anybody's experiencing micro orbs or smart dust. It's weird, but I've got a video of this thing, and it actually, I call it being attacked because it came at me. But as I went back and took still shots, this thing was morphing.
Day or night?
It was in the evening. It was inside my house.
Okay, so it's still, you've got lights on. It's not like, a lot of people will get them in the middle of the night where they're filming in their bedroom where these things are flying around. No, okay.
No, I was in the living room. I had a light on. It was pretty dim though. I just had one light on. And but this thing came from the left of the room. I mean, you can see like dust orbs,
Yeah.
I call them, which are just dust, like reflecting.
Yeah.
But this thing actually came in from the left of the room. It came down by the computer. There's actually, in one of the still shots that I took from this film, a reflection of it in the computer screen.
Wow.
And yeah, so it reflected into the computer screen. It was right in front of it. And then it came over towards me. It went down. It went across the room over in front of this 70-inch television that I have in front of my mantle. And it went up the television screen. It went to the top. It went over. As I looked at the still shots, I could see every little frame and what it was doing. So as it went to the top of the TV, you could see like a light reflecting onto the wall, the mantle behind the TV. And I could see where it actually went behind the TV. But yet I could still see the light coming through the TV. Does that make sense? And then it like came back out. It went along the chair, and then it went across the room over towards me, and it followed the edge of the couch. There's a couch I have over to the right side. It followed the edge of the couch, and then it just came right at me. Just a boom. And then it did this little dance in the air like this. And then it shot up straight and up, and then it was gone. I couldn't find it.
So how long would this video be?
I think it was like 1 minute and 35 seconds or something like that.
Oh my goodness.
But the thing comes in at some point, and then it lasts for a while. I mean, you see it moving around, you see it go across the room, the TV thing, come back towards me, and then come right at me, and then do this little dance and go up. But you can see that it's cloud-like. That's what made me think of when I saw the orb in the picture with the Zendra. These things are morphing, they expand. In some of the still shots, this thing looks like a cloud, but you can see like there's structure in it, if that makes sense. It's really weird, and this is something new. This has not happened before, and I don't even know why I decided to do a little film that night as I was sitting in the chair relaxing. I just turned on the camera and
You read my
I saw the
mind.
little-
That was the question I was going to ask you, is why you're filming. But people get this idea. Destin, I have a friend here in Winnipeg who, how it started for him was he's watching a movie, and then 10 minutes into the end of the movie, they said, you should go outside and skywatch and take your laser with you. And of course, the thing flew by. It's like this indirect message.
Well, that's like the thing I photographed in 2017, a couple years ago. I was on my way to Home Depot one day to get some stuff, and something, it just was communicating in my brain, you know, as I'm driving and there's all kinds of traffic, told me to pull over and photograph the sky. And I was ignoring it, you know, but it was such a strong, like, communication, not verbal, or it was just in my mind, you know. And I literally said out loud, okay, and I pulled over. I photographed the sky, and I couldn't even see it because it was bright, and I'm very sensitive to light.
Yeah.
And when I got home, a couple days later, I looked at it. I remembered, oh, I didn't ever look at these pictures. And I looked, and there's these like concentric circles within circles, and in the very center there's these two lights, and in front of it there's some weird shaped object with these little protrusions coming out of it. It's the weirdest thing I've seen, but I've got the pictures of it. So
Wow,
yeah,
you're gonna have to take over the
something told
camera.
me.
I think everybody
What's
wants you
that?
to everybody wants you to take over the screen and show your stuff.
Yeah,
Let me
I
ask-
would like to know, did you have a feeling that it was alive?
That it was alive?
Alive. Was it alive or was it mechanical?
Well, it was up in the sky, so I don't know. I don't know if it was alive. I mean, it almost looked cloud-like, except for this structure in front of it, the rings, you know, but there were like bright spots in it, and the two like lights in the center. And this other thing, it's like nothing I've ever seen, and nothing like would resemble a plane, a ship, or anything you could imagine in your mind, which is weird. But yeah, I've got pictures of it. I don't have it up, or I mean, I'd have
Next
to.
time you come on, get it queued up for the next time you come on.
Yeah, I need to get some of these pictures together and show them, because
You do have a lot of high strangeness. So let me ask you the question I posed before. What do you think is going on? Because you've got this thing sort of following you around and it's giving you indications to take a look, to film, and you're gathering all this stuff like you're obsessed with documenting something. What do you think is going on? Why you?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's why you're
That's
here,
why I
right?
document things and look at things and research things, because I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I have no clue. But now, you know, I've had experiences for a long time, and even as a child, I had experiences. We grew up on a farm. I grew up on a farm in Missouri that we thought was haunted because there were so many strange things happening. It was kind of like a Skinwalker Ranch, but it was in Missouri. And there was a creature, my aunt saw it. There was all kinds of weird stuff that happened there, but I'm not going to go into it because it's too long and drawn out. Even as a child, when we moved, this thing followed us. We saw UFOs all the time on the farm. I thought it was a normal thing until I started talking about it, and my friends would make fun of me, so I stopped talking about it. And we were chased, my mother and my sisters. I have 5 sisters back then, and we were chased by an orb one night on the way home from a nearby town, and just stuff like that. And everybody was screaming. It was crazy. I mean, a lot has happened. So yeah, I you know, grew up, and when I say I stopped talking about it because nobody else seemed to be having these kind of experiences, so I just kind of grew up, and I got married, had kids later, and just kind of let it go. But it always followed me and reminded me it was there. And then I started having more experiences and strange things that I won't go in. It's just too much to go into. But I have no idea what's going on, but I sure would like to know. That's
why you're
why
here.
I try to hear other people's stories. The thing with the blue light was very interesting because I've been in the blue light more than once, and I know there's something very significant about it.
In the blue light, let's go there, because Candace knows a lot about blue. So give me the story about the blue light. I'm not familiar with that.
Well, in one of my abduction experiences, and I've never been regressed, so I don't have details. I just have memory of events. In one or a couple of these, I was in this blue light, and these beings were there. One of these beings is what people describe as a mantis being.
Okay.
And this being's very intelligent, or the one with me was. And I saw a clone of myself on laying down, I don't know what it was on. It was like suspended in the air. I was in like a cave, or it seemed to be a cave. I just know it was a huge space. It was damp,
Okay.
like damp, and it was just illuminated with this blue light. And these beings, they live in this blue light, I guess, or maybe they can't live in our atmosphere. I don't know. But that was my experience in the blue light one time. Another time, I was in the blue light. I don't know what they were doing to me. But this being was over me. The little ones were at my feet. I could see them because I was looking up, like with my head. And I was in the blue light. I don't know where I was. You know, I don't remember being in a ship ever. I just remember being in a large space.
Candace, have you got
Like
anything,
a cave.
questions for this? I just want to drag Candace into this because Candace actually has part of her name is Blue, so she's the Blue Lady.
Well, she said something about the DNA, not DNA, but that they were encoding people with blue light. Because in my communications with this being, that my recordings I do, that I think I mentioned before, and I'm not going to go deep into that right now either, but it said it was taking blue light from me. I don't know what that means.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you got actually messages in terms of DNA. Were they talking to you about DNA, the altering DNA or upgrading it or whatever?
Just what they were doing. I wanted to know what they were doing to me, or what they wanted from me, and it said blue light. I have this recorded. It's actually recorded. They communicate to me. I don't know how it's working, but I just tried this because the initial communications began with EVPs. I woke up one night, and I think I told this story. I couldn't open my eyes, and fluid was pouring out of my eyes and my nose. I went to the doctor. They said it was acute corneal erosion. She wanted to know what I got in my eye. I said nothing. I was asleep, but this just happened. So I started recording the next night because I thought maybe I'm moving around in my sleep and hurting myself. I mean, you hear stories where people sleepwalk and do all kinds of things. And that was the beginning of me waking up to what the hell was going on around me when I thought I was asleep. And it's like I'm in another environment. My voice was on the recording in some places, but it's very faint. It's not like people, it's not like in the movies where, all this dramatic stuff is happening. It's very subtle.
You got them on the tape as well, or just you?
I have their sound on the tape. They make a series of clicking sounds, and it's very weird. But yes, I have recordings of these, whatever they are. I don't know if it's a mantis being but they make these click sounds. Really weird.
I'd love to get a recording of that, because we've heard beings making clicking noises.
Okay, well, yeah, I've got it, and it's weird. It's hard to get because, wherever the environment changes, and I don't know what's happening when the environment changes, but you're not in the same environment. Does it make sense to anybody? Okay, I mean, it gets even weirder in my conversations and what's happening. I learned that what people call a soul, I call a bioelectromagnetic field.
Okay.
And
were you told that, or did you just come up with that?
I came up with that because from what this being told me, conscience collects light. This is how it was described to me, and I'm assuming that somehow the BIM field, as I call it, it's not like in one place. Like, it develops over a time frame from the beginning. Do you know what I'm saying? It collects light. Information is in light. Light carries information, and it collects information as it travels wherever it goes. And the bioelectromagnetic field, or the BIM field as I call it, is a collection of that information. And they know how to, people are going to think this is really getting on the weird end.
Nothing's too weird in this field. Nothing's too weird. Keep going.
The BIM field inhabits a container that we call a body, but that is just a container, and that container can be shared by other BIM fields.
Wow.
Is anybody going weird on me yet?
No.
In ancient times, I mean, it's actually, this is an ancient thing, because in ancient times they called it possession. And people were possessed by demons or whatever. That was the BIM field technology, as I called it, that these creatures or whatever they are, wherever they come from, were developing and have perfected. So they reside within some of us, is what I'm going to say. And I know it sounds way out there, but this is what I'm experiencing and what I've been told. So
Do they want you to put a message out? Do they want this out through you? Are you like a sound, like a communicator for them? That are you documenting all this? I guess first question. Are you?
oh yeah, I'm documenting everything.
There you
I
go.
have been for several years now, since all this kind of woke me up back in 2013, actually. The night that everything happened and then the eye thing,
With
and
the
I
eye
started
thing.
recording and realizing what was going on. And I don't know what they've done to me, but they have done things to me. I was, something was injected into my sacral hiatus. It left a puncture that caused me to have all kinds of neurological problems. I had to go to the doctor. Several years prior to that, something else happened that I just wanted to block out, and it was happened to my upper spine, where they did something to my spine in an event. My mother remembered it because 4 years after that, I had to have surgery on my spine, and they had to remove this osteophyte complex, as they called it, because it was like pressing into my spinal cord. So I think they're interested in the nervous system of the human body, of the endocrine system. I don't know, something like that. So that's my experience. I know everybody else is having different experiences, but then later they injected something. I think they took something from my spine and injected it back on another experience where I was awake when it happened, and then they knocked me out or whatever they do. So I don't know. I have no idea. I was so frustrated after I got over the fear. You know, I went through several stages. And then I reached out to communicate in the same way that I discovered them, which was EVP. And then I just started this recording sessions that I do now using this software I use. And then I get response. And I even asked one time how they're doing that. And they said Orion 9. And I said, you know, thinking, what the hell is Orion 9? So I look up Orion 9. Well, it happens to be an intelligence satellite that was put up. The Orion satellites were put up in different years, and the Orion 9 is a intelligence communications satellite.
Whoa.
That I don't know who's using it, the NSA or some it's for intelligence I guess a spy satellite or something. I don't know. If you look it up, you'll read about it. So I was freaking out. So there is an Orion 9. So I don't know what it was trying to tell me about that.
Fascinating.
It is fascinating. So, you know,
It's,
it may be from a distance and communicating a different way. I don't know.
I'm glad you've recorded all this in terms of getting it all down. How many hours of tape would you have gathered together?
I've got recordings that I haven't even listened to because it's too time consuming. And a lot of those are from the beginning days. The recordings I do now, I have to limit them to like 12 minutes at the max because I don't know what I'm going to get from them. And I have to listen back to hear. And sometimes there's other stuff there, you know, I have to find it and see what they're saying. And it's very time consuming, very. But I still got the recordings I've never listened to, just a lot of them. Because some of these from the early days were just, I would just turn it on when my iPad recorder when I went to bed at night. And then I would listen, and then in the background, it's very subtle, it's very faint. Sometimes you have to amplify it to hear it. And then I can tell you another thing is some of the things that were recorded, like in one thing, I can just, this is just one little piece of a recording where I was saying something in a foreign language, and I don't speak a foreign language. But when I slowed it down to certain hertz, it said, we can't find the code.
Wow.
So I think you can actually play with this stuff and slow it down and speed it up and do different things to it. And it's actually multiple things within it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's a guess.
Before someone else gets a question, I just want to ask one thing. Maybe Jeff and I can link up with you and drag Marcel into this thing, because Marcel was talking to me at Shasta about some technology that's actually being developed similar to where you're going, except they're using a different type of technology, but where you can actually communicate with the beings. And I'm working a lot now on physical mediums and the soul phone, and they believe they're on the very edge of being able to communicate with dead people using technology. So maybe, because you've got this, maybe we
because
can link up with Marcel and Jeff and actually work on this and see if we can give you some technology that you can use to help your communication.
Absolutely. That's something I would be interested in, because, you know, I always say, you know, I don't want to just sit and tell another story. I really want to find answers and find people who know something about something and, you know, move forward, because I don't know where to go next.
Fascinating. Any questions? Go ahead.
Grant, I want to share, I hear a few stories about needles, and I have the same experience where I was measured on the back. I was laying down in my bed, and I knew they were measuring my back in 3 exact same parts. I just knew that. And then in each part was an injection being given, in which it was just very painful in the core of my being. And so 3 times. And it just startled me completely. I don't know what they were doing, but I know they were doing something. So then the next evening, I was going to a shamanic consciousness healing class, and I asked my teacher, I said, you know, I said, I need to share this with you because I have no idea what's going on. And I told her the story, and she asked, do you think they're benevolent or not? And I'm like thinking like, well, I don't feel like they're wanting to harm me. I had more feel like they were doing something with a purpose. She says, well, you know, most likely they don't know. Well, I did have abductions with mantises, so I want to mention that on here too. But then they said, well, tell them. They probably don't have no idea what it is to feel in a human body. They don't have our bodies. So tell them. So I did. I said, okay, guys, this was really painful. I have no clue what you guys are doing, but if you really want to keep working with me, you're going to have to change your ways, your things you're doing. So, and I have not had any painful experiences since I made that statement. Wow. I know we're still working together, but the painful stuff is gone.
And you think, is it all mantis with you? Because sometimes you hear the mantis is like the wisdom, you have the grays, and then you have the mantis that they're overseeing, or?
Recently, I have more information that I have been in other programs, and I'm learning to discern what is the real, you know, the real ET stuff and what's the other stuff. I'm learning to figure out so that my consciousness is not confused by the whole thing. So I'm in that process because I realize now there's 2 different, there's different programs going on.
Elaborate on that. What do you think do you think there's a government program? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one. Yeah. So, and recently we were in Laughlin, and I had a great conversation with Richard Boyland.
Oh, yeah.
Boyland, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it was amazing. He really validated for me that, yes, I have my benevolent ET experiences, and I have been in the other programs, and I need to make very clear that I tell my own inner self that there are 2 different ways. So it was incredible to have that time with him. It was really, really powerful.
Wow.
Anyway, I'm figuring it out like everybody else. there's more questions than answers, but like, you know, I'm starting to share all my experiences, and the more we share, the more we will help each other. That's what I see.
I appreciate your sharing, and I appreciate the connection to the mantis, where we're getting a
Mhm.
couple crosses because
And
you
the
know,
blue lights, the blue
lot of
lights.
blue lights.
I see a lot of blue lights. I want to share what Desta was sharing too. After my experience in Crestone, we were in Crestone too with Paula Harris, and we were for a month on the road. We just like to go to conferences, just hang out and camp and just explore. And so after Crestone, we went camping, and we were somewhere in the
national parks in
national parks, somewhere.
Canyonville,
Yeah.
Cannonville, in a place called Cannonville.
And we had a tent, and we were tent camping, open tent, so you could see the sky. And all of a sudden, I opened my eyes and I look, and I see this white flash light, and I had this feel. It was a feeling thing, and something like with the antiviral thing, like Desta said. Sometimes it's afterwards you experience stuff. I had that same feeling, like, oh, okay. I was connected. It was a warm feeling. And then who was it here who brought up Estrella? Katerina mentioned
Katerina,
it. Yeah, I by her talking about the blue light, in that same experience, I saw blue light as well in that same tent camping thing. So, and I see blue lights all the time. They just show up in my field, and
Yeah, the
sometimes
blue
it's
light is significant.
yeah, it's something to do with blue light, and I don't have the answers either.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, the blue
Candace,
light
you got
is
you're
significant.
the blue light lady. Can jump in on this?
Who's that?
No, Candace, is she here? Is she left?
Yeah, sorry, I've been a little in and out.
I want to hear about the blue light.
I've caught some things here and there. Well, you know, I've had a lot of different experiences, starting at a pretty young age, and I kind of wanted to go, Grant, back to your question about what's it all about, and
Ooh, yeah,
so
okay.
about CE5s. The first CE5 I attended was Stephen Greer's retreat for landing parties. He was training landing parties. I think it was 92 or 93. And, you know, we had beings, we had orbs, we had big, huge balls of light. You know, we had all of that stuff. And so there's been sort of a mixed media of things happening with people over the years, certainly in my experience and in many other people's experiences, because we're talking a lot about how these things are interconnected, possibly. And the dots that I've connected myself around my own experiences, have suggested to me that that it's not so much about the experiences themselves, which a lot of people want to focus on, and they want to concretize or, you know, make more real, if you will, the experiences, because there's such a curiosity about that. But I think it's the same like with our psychic phenomena. You know, people have kept that, or used to anyway, kept that at arm's length for so long because it was frightening and strange, and so they always separated it from, you know, our reality. But in fact, I think it is our reality. I don't think it's paranormal at all. I think it's quite normal, and I think that all of these other things that are happening at this particular time have to do with consciousness, and have to do with our evolution in consciousness, that we're starting to experience more and more of this kind of phenomena, because there's more and more of it trying to emerge from us. I mean, I think it is us. I'm one of the woo-woo people like you, Grant, who believes in the we are all one theory. Yeah, and I just think that our own consciousness is what is emerging. We're so interconnected with the phenomena. It's so personal for so many people. I mean, even Al's stories, you know, those stories go back a long time. They used to associate it with death. If Al's hooted at your window, it meant, you know, that you were getting ready to die. In fact, my brother had an owl experience. He lived in Texas, and about 2 months before he died, this snowy owl in Texas in summer showed up. And snowy owls are not known in Texas at all, you know, but especially in the summertime. So he had this snowy owl show up, and it circled his house 3 times and hooting the whole time that it was circling his house, and he passed 2 months later. So, you know, I mean, I think these things are all part of our consciousness, and they're very interconnected with who we intrinsically are. And I think that's the message. I think that's the thing that's trying to happen, is to bring our awareness to this fact that we're way more than we think we are, and that we need to be embracing this part of us, our consciousness, our psychic phenomena, all of it, because the coming times are going to require it. I think that what's happening and what's coming very soon is going to require that we have this awareness, and that we are able to work with it and connect with it, and you know, understand it as much as we possibly can, or at least accept it as normal and as part of us. You know, so that's
why just us? Because as you know, most people are living lives of quiet desperation. They're just paying their bills. They have no idea what's going on. So why are the people on this broadcast sort of being woken up? Have we got some sort of role or mission, or why us?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, Grant. And in fact, I was thinking about that just this morning. I was going to ask people on here, how many of you feel that you are empathic, maybe even abnormally empathic, or oversensitive.
Yes,
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
A little different.
Yeah. Have a lot of different kinds of sensitivities, you know, maybe sensitivity to sound or light, or, you know, I think one of the things having to do with people who come in wired with a greater sensitivity are the first ones to wake up. And that those of us who are waking up sooner are here to help other people wake up. That's the idea, I think, is the more that somebody said this earlier, that it's important we talk about it. And I totally agree with that. I think the more we talk about it and share our experiences, the more normal it becomes. And we have to stop abnormalizing it, and make it more part of who we actually are. Yeah, that's what I think.
Well,
Yeah, that's the hardest part. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's the hardest part is people don't want to accept this kind of stuff. And like where I'm at right now in my research and what I'm doing is really out there, but that's where it has taken me. And even my family, you know, they don't talk to me much right now because I'm not talking about God and, you know, angels and things like that. So yeah, it's difficult sometimes. You really have to go it alone. And
well, you know, I think it's about languaging. I think we have to find the right language. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the right and left in politics are at each other's throats because they don't have the right language to communicate with one another. Because many of them, if you talk to people just in general, have a lot of the same values and the same desires and so forth. Of course, there's a lot of people on either side here saying, "Oh, not me. I'm not like them." You know.
I think it's kind of about belief systems too. People have embedded belief systems.
Definitely.
If your mind, if you're not an explorer by nature, your mind, so to say, you know, because information is knowledge. That knowledge comes in all kinds of ways, and sometimes it's just innate, or instilled within us or from another source we maybe don't know of, but it comes to us and we are aware. So you
Well, I
have to
think
respond and open up to it.
Well,
yeah, I agree with that, and I think that it's our responsibility to find a language, to find a way to communicate this stuff, so that it's not scary, it's not weird or woo woo, or I mean, there's ways to speak to your relatives at Thanksgiving about politics. You know what I mean?
There is. There is?
well, there for some people. I mean, it's just impossible. But for others, most people just have to avoid the subject. So who knows how many of us will actually wake up to this new paradigm? But I think it's imperative that we do.
That our experiences they're all the same experiences, but they're being presented to each one of us in a way that will resonate or work with us as individuals.
I agree with that.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not
that's
demons.
why our
Some people
experiences are so similar yet so different. It's what works for us as individuals, and I pray to God or whoever or whatever that everyone at some point finds that thing that makes it click for them.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say one thing here. So we're talking about what is the purpose, or what is our purpose, or what is our connection with them. When we were in Crestone, maybe I told you this, Phil, I'm not sure. We were in Crestone between the two nights that we went out on the field to do our CE5. I got a very clear message, because the first night I said, what can we do to make this easier to communicate and stuff? And then I got a really, really clear message downloaded, and it was just very clear. It said, take your planet back from the banksters.
No.
So just take control back from the financial world that has taken over our world. So I just want to throw that
I've
in.
thought about it too, and when I try to, reason in my mind, why is this happening, or why? There may not be any reason. It may not have anything to do with us. It may, it's just something that some other civilization that found this planet in this Milky Way galaxy that we're in. But there's trillions of stars out there. There's billions of galaxies. I mean, we're just that little speck floating around in space. I mean, but it's like we go and discover other worlds, and we send probes to Mars, and those things are happening to this world too, I think, and
but
it's not anything more than that.
I want to be clear that the message that I had asked for is, what is it that we can do to support this connection between ourselves and whoever these other beings are? And that's when I got that direct message. It said, take your planet, be in control of your planet. Don't let it be hijacked.
Mm-hmm. Well, Paul, can I ask you,
Sure.
if you were to look at that about yourself personally, could you see that as a metaphor for something going on with you personally? Because I think a lot of times the messages that come have to do with that. Sometimes they seem like there's about something outside, but it's more about something inside of us, that if we get clear on that, and that's how I think we can help ourselves to get together with what's happening, is to start to internalize it really and take it into ourselves and look at things more metaphorically and look at things symbolically in terms of what that means for us personally.
Well, Candace, I would say that you're right there, except that this just came out of the blue. It was just a direct download. I wasn't thinking about anything or anything else. And I've had messages come in before, and it's just like, it's not me. It's like, what? Who said that? That type of a message just comes blasting in. That's why I shared it that way. I have my own things, and there are places that it could interrelate. But this seemed like it was, the way that I got it was a direct, hey, this is, you asked, this is it.
Well, I think we do get those messages. We do get help with
Yeah.
trying to see ourselves. And that's part of the purpose of interacting with the phenomenon.
But I think, Candace, I think it's wonderful what you bring this up, because yes, it's true. We do have a personal family situation that's connected to this subject. So yes, when you said that, I'm like, bingo. But it's also, what I also see, our personal family situation is a reflection of also what's going on in the mass collective. So it's perfect what you said, and then what you said is like, yeah, it's definitely immediately related to our family situation.
Personal situation. Yeah.
And while we're going through the family situation, I'm like, Jesus, that's just a reflection of what's going on in the world.
Yes.
So it's all connected.
It's all connected, right, Grant?
It's all connected.
Well, I was going to say too, if they have the BIM-filled technology, soul technology, whatever you want to call it, to inhabit containers, depending on the life of different worlds, a lot of things could be happening right now. And that could make sense why he got that download. Because we don't know what's inhabiting what container, and there's a lot of containers on this planet. So that's another thought that I've had too. Things could get crazy. But that's going way out there. So I don't know. And a lot of people aren't aware, and some are. So there's a lot of people in the world that have no clue about any of this that we talk about here, or don't want to know, or push it aside because they're drowned out in their worldly whatever is happening.
Do you feel better by talking about it? Does it clear up for you, sort of, even though the people are maybe against you, which is the actual pattern that most people's families are not really into this and supportive. So does it give you a sense of, not achievement, but that it's sort of worth it, that it's something valuable is being given to you? Do you see it that way?
Not really. Actually, I feel kind of sad a lot of the time, and well, sad about the disconnect of the family. I mean, they still talk to me, just we're not close, and nobody comes to visit me. Nobody calls to see if I'm okay. It's like nobody wants, and I don't even talk about it anymore. So I think
that's pretty standard.
Yeah,
right?
But I don't know that. I just want to know what's going on. I'm an explorer type of person. I want to know things. I want to know what's out there in the universe. I want to know everything that we don't know, and I just believe in moving forward and getting information and knowledge and growing and going to the next level of what a civilization gets to, or.
See, when I hear your story and the stories that people are telling here, I sort of always use the analogy of the Super Bowl. When you suddenly realize, like, you people have no clue what's going on here, and you're getting these sort of messages and these sort of higher concepts of how the reality actually works. You're spending all your time thinking about this, and you have to be sort of sympathetic to people around you because they just have no clue what's going on. And you listen to their conversations. I was in some this morning where you're listening to the conversation, and it's like, what's new? Complaining about the weather because it's very cold here today, and it's like, oh, get me out of this conversation. It's like, wow. It's like, and so you get the support when you're in a group like this. And so when I say, like, you're in the Super Bowl, so when I see people like you and other people sharing here today, I always look at sort of advanced souls, that these people are getting messages from somebody for some particular reason, and I should listen to these people, that they're ahead of the people that I had coffee with this morning.
Yeah, well, they don't let you get away either. If you try to get away, they come up even more, and keep bothering you. So whatever they are. But I don't know that I really feel like I have no clue, Grant. I have no clue what's going on, but I damn sure want to know and find out. And I just really have learned a lot too, and just my whole world view has changed over the years. I almost feel like I'm not from this world. If
One
that
other
makes
thing
sense
I'll
to
bring up, and then we'll just sort of open it up for people because we're near the end. If anything they want to add, I just did a PowerPoint presentation, which should be up within, I don't know, the next couple of weeks, and where I do I'm looking at the Stanton Friedman files, and one of the files I found there was a diagram of the most commonly seen beings in up to 1979. And the Greys were not in there, and the reptilians were not in there, and the mantis were not in there. It was completely gone. And I always try to tell people, I've been in this since 1975, and what was happening in 75 is completely different than what's happening today. And it's almost like we are like the gays of the 1960s, where it's sort of opening up. We're sort of gathering together in little groups, and we are sort of enlightening each other as to what's going on. And I think we are sort of we light up our little corner of the world with whatever information we get, put it out there to everybody else. And I think we're really no different than any other social political movement, whether it's gay rights or African American rights or whatever it is, that the more we talk about it, the more the consciousness of the world rises, and we don't look so weird anymore. Because I'll tell you, if you talked about this stuff in 1975, they would lock you up, because in 1975, it was actually believed that you only saw one UFO. It was a random event. There's no pattern to it. If you saw 2 UFO events, you are absolutely totally crazy. It's time to lock you up. Now we know it runs in patterns. All the people here are describing it's been happening since I was a kid. It's like it's following me around, and you suddenly realize the world is completely different. It's way more complex than people think it is. And you and I are on the leading edge. That's why I say you got to realize you're in some sort of Super Bowl game, that you are sort of like in the leading edge of something that's happening here. And that it really doesn't matter whether anybody else really understands what's going on, because there, but for the grace of God, go I. If I hadn't had the experiences, if you hadn't had the experiences, you would be the same stupid people that they are. And so we got to realize that we have this sort of opportunity, that we are on the leading edge, and all we got to do is figure out why are we here, what are we supposed to be doing, and are we doing it, and just try to figure it out and realize that we are. We're almost the lucky people who get to see the world 500 years in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe something's going on, and
And for me,
you know,
it's definitely progressing. So
yeah, it's
it must be
progress.
on the,
That's
For
a
me,
good way to describe it, because it is progressive.
progressed a lot, because I remember as a very young girl hearing, I read this in the paper about that big UFO wave in Michigan, where J. Allen Hynek talked about swamp gas.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind. I was only a very young kid, but it opened the door. And the minute I heard it, I would think I was about 13, and I thought, that's bull crap. I thought, that doesn't sound right. I mean, I just knew. And from that time on, I was hooked, and I started exploring. I've been exploring ever since. You can imagine how old I am now. But it's like I have put the pieces together, and it has changed over time. And I feel like I'm finally getting to the part where it really connects to my soul, and not just to beings from another world. And I am so happy that the world is changing in ways, and that people like y'all, most of y'all are younger than me, except maybe for you, Grant, maybe a little younger, that y'all are starting to see and take it in new directions, and stopping and think, wait a minute, that can't be right either. Because as soon as we think we're going to have it nailed, we won't, and we'll have to take it up another step.
Yeah. Beautiful. Any other thoughts before we close here?
Yeah, it's almost looks like it's something similar to a International Earth, our organization, meeting a Stone Age tribe, and them trying to, and they're asking, besides the technology, how we work out here. They don't have the words or concepts, so it takes time. So how do you tell a Stone Age smart person about the internet or international business when they have no concept of it? And to me, it's more like we're being given a puzzle to solve. As we solve the puzzle, we learn what we need to know. If they told us directly what to know and what to read, we wouldn't get it. But you give the kid a puzzle and you let them learn the puzzle, the language, and over time, we keep digging in. And they've given us a simple puzzle as one UFO. Now there's 5, now there's us. Then we have the consciousness. We have where I've been taken out of my body also with technology and put in someone else. So we're not just
Yes,
physical.
that happens.
We are consciousness. We are more. And I'm probably an old soul here doing something of its job. So it is interesting, and we don't know fully yet what it is, though.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that the idea that, you know, we're starting to have more collective experiences like Shasta and in these different places also suggests that the more we engage, the more it emerges, and that it is about creating more openness in ourselves and others, because the more open we are, the more these things happen. I mean, if you were to take a break from engaging with the material or anything for a few years, it would probably die down. You probably wouldn't have very much activity. I've seen that and heard that from people. And so there's something about coming together and sharing these experiences that actually is procreative, if you will. It helps create more of the energy, or at least more openness to it, for us to be able to receive it and have those experiences. So, you know, I think it's great that people get together and connect and speak about these things, but also have experiences together. I think that's very important.
Mm-hmm. I was going to share something about contact and it evolving. I had an interesting experience just last night. I was having a dream, and in the dream there was this very soft jazz music going on in the background. And when I woke up, the jazz music continued, and I could feel the familiar energy sensation throughout my body. And I realized, oh, 'cause at first I thought maybe a phone was on playing jazz or something. And so I started to look, I actually got a little bit nervous to look around my room about what I might see. And I realized I didn't see anything. And then I thought, oh, they're here. And I asked mentally, could you turn into a ball of light and kind of, you know, fly around my room or something? And instantly the energy dropped very, very significantly. And I got the understanding that, no, we're here communicating with you about music. If you change this to be us being a ball of light, it's a different experience. We want to share this music with you. And that was actually quite significant, because over the past few days with different friends, we had been doing this thing at night where 2 different friends had been sharing music all night, just different songs. And it was as if they were a part of that, and this was their turn to share their music. And by me saying become a ball of light, it changed it. And so I stopped, I dialed it back, and I said, oh, okay, thank you. And I just listened to the music. It was just this very soft, relaxing jazz music that was just playing. But it was just wild. And I think it was them trying to change the language that they use for contact. And you know, and I almost, my instinct was, oh, be a ball of light. And their response was, no, we're going to do something different. And I thought that was wild. That was really cool.
Oh, thanks for that, Jan. You know, it seems like what I was getting from what you were saying is that they're also saying something about get your ego out of the way, you know, and just be accepting of what comes, because we have to keep our curiosity up, and our openness involves being curious about it and not trying to direct it in the way that we would like.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Very cool.
I'll just add one little thing, and then if anybody's got nothing, we can shut her down. And whenever somebody wants another one, if you want it in 2 weeks, that's fine.
Yes, please.
Yeah, yes.
What's that? Next week?
Yes, please.
Christmas Day?
Oh, no, not
Yes.
Christmas Day.
When we get thrown out of our places for talking about this kind of stuff. Jan mentioned music. I was actually just working on music today, and that's where I was trying to link up this idea where I think we're on the verge of some technologies where we can actually start to interact directly through technologies, whether it's a cell phone or whether it's the ET communication technology that I've heard being talked about. And this morning I'm working on a a music presentation for next year. So Jan brought this up. I'll just tell you the story. I'm actually on one with what's called a voice medium, and I'd realized his tapes are actually at the University of Manitoba. There's this Leslie Flint guy who was able to communicate with dead people, and the voice actually comes out of nowhere. It sort of comes out of a box in the middle of the room, and they have these actual conversations. And the one they were having was with Frederick Chopin, and I was listening just over the last day. I downloaded all the conversations they had with Chopin, and Chopin's talking, and Chopin was talking about how he was coming to the world and the thing about vibration and making contact, and he's working on the other side to do this kind of stuff. And I thought it was so cool. And so then I know there's a woman, so I'm doing this presentation, there's a woman in Great Britain, and what was her name? Brown is her last name. But she was getting compositions from various composers and she was getting these things and writing these compositions out, and she was getting art. She was doing different art from dead artists and stuff like that. And so I went and looked, and sure enough, she was in contact with Chopin as well. So you have this sort of idea where you have, and that's where I think it's all linked together. It's spirit beings, it's angelic beings, it's aliens, and they're all almost like the veil is thin, and these people are coming through. And what Candace brought up, I'd never thought, because I'm doing the end of the contact modality book. I'm finished. I'm just going to add what Candace mentioned today. I sort of forgot about this, is that all the people on this conversation may be the people who are the most highly sensitive. And we're picking up the message first, and then later on other people will pick it up, but we're picking it up right now because of whatever soul thing contract we made, or our past lives that have put us in this position, that we're just the more sensitive people that have started to pick up a signal that everybody can pick up, and everybody eventually will pick up.
Yeah, I think everybody can do this. I don't think it's something special about myself, for instance.
Yeah.
I think everybody has this ability. So, but it's all about how tuned in you are and where your consciousness is, and it's where your mind is at the
Tuned
time.
in. I like that. I have to tell one more story, because you mentioned the word tuned in. I'll tell you. I'm starting to get these synchronicity stories. I got to tell the story because you mentioned tuned in. As you know, there's a woman named Jo Wood. She was married to Ronnie Wood from the Rolling Stones. And someone sends me, Pia Knudsen, who should have been on here today. She's not on, but Pia sends me this email and says, oh, this woman, Jo Wood, used to be married to the Rolling Stones for 30 years. She's doing an interview with Gary Hesseltine, and she says, you should listen to this. So I go, from the Rolling Stones? Because I did a book called Tuned In, a music book, where I got a message from an alien that said the message is in the music. And so I decided I was going to do this book. So when I heard Jo Wood was doing this thing called Alien Nation podcast on UFOs, because she had two real dramatic experiences herself, one with her son, one by herself and her husband. And so I go, oh, wow, I got to go see. I wonder if she interviewed some of the musicians that are in my book. And I went and looked, and sure enough, she had done two. She'd done Robbie Williams, who's in my book, and the other one she'd done was a guy named Sean Ryder, who was a big musician in Great Britain, and had I think 100 UFOs when he was delivering papers as a young kid. Saw the 100 UFOs go over. So her first interview she does with Sean Ryder, and she's talking to him, and I go, wow. So I download the interview, and I'm listening to the interview, and she's talking to Sean, and she says, Sean, so why do you think they picked you? And he said, I think I was tuned in. And I went, wow, that's the name of my book. So I contact Pia Knudsen back. You can't believe this. It's like you can't make this up. So I contact Pia Knudsen back, and I say, Pia, you're not going to believe this. You told me to listen to this thing. I listened, the first interview I listened to is Sean Ryder, and he said he's tuned in, he's in my book, and my book is called Tuned In. She said, as she's reading the email, Melinda Leslie is giving a presentation to her group in Denmark. And Melinda's showing these slides. And she said, as she's reading my email about Tuned In and Sean Ryder, Melinda Leslie turns the screen to another shot, and it's a picture of a Ryder truck. And you get that kind of synchronicities, and you go like, wow, we should follow this. So you can see it's like we're sort of on the leading edge. We're picking up these signals that other people aren't picking up. And I think, to me, it's like I think we should value the experiences we're having and try to stay together with each other and try to figure this thing out and share it with the world, because eventually everybody will know that we were right all along. Almost like now you have the New York Times story, and they say, oh, the government's doing UFOs, and now people go, we knew that already. They didn't say that, and let me tell you, 45 years ago, they weren't saying that. Now they're,
Right.
yeah, we know there's UFOs, big deal, like, so we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Guys, I don't know. I know I've been quiet throughout, but I had a musical experience. Sorry. Everybody's
Joanne
very
from the UK.
Oh, yeah. First Canada and then the UK.
Yeah.
But just to say about my music experience, because it happened a long time before I ever sort of went public with doing interviews and that kind of thing, and also having an interview myself with Joe Wood, which is lovely, and thanks to Grant for that. But I had been working a couple of jobs. I was really exhausted. This is sort of the background, and I don't know whether it was the degree of exhaustion which completely allowed me to be open, but I'd been doing a lot of meditating and, I don't know, spiritual developmental work, I'll call it at this time. So this was like, let me think, 30 years ago, something like that. And in between my jobs, one was in the day and one was in the evening, I would sometimes just go, I'd be so exhausted, I'd just go and literally lie on a couch. But, I just didn't make it to the bedroom, never. And what I used to listen to just, decompress me was Massenet's Thais meditation, actually. It's called Meditation from the opera Thais, and it's the most beautiful violin. Anyway, and more. And I'd got the music going, and no, I hadn't got the music going. Before I just got the music going, I was just about to, and I was lying down, and all of a sudden my body went into a paralysis mode. Now, my body I used to have this experience a lot when I was younger. I don't get it really so much now, which is, I'm not sure why that is. That's an interesting thing. Yeah. But normally, I am not a person who can allow it. I wish I would, because people tell me it's a precursor to astral traveling and all that. But somehow I fight tooth and nail to regain conscious, control of my body, because, movement. Anyway, this time I was completely relaxed, mentally, physically. Of course, physically I couldn't move, but my mental state was complete and utter calm. And as I kind of lay in wonderment, still awake but tired, it was like a radio station began to come on, but was looking for its station. I mean, I know it sounds bizarre, but this is how it actually sounded. When you're looking for that BBC Two or jazz program and you haven't got the right setting, and it blips in and out. Well, it blipped in and out for, 2-3 seconds before landing or coming to this station. I didn't see anything. This is all audio or auditory. And it began to play something like it. I don't think it was exactly, but it was something like Massenet, the meditation from Thais. I mean, I was blown away. And you know what? I also knew, I was fully conscious that I was being given one of the greatest gifts of my life by being conscious. And this was not in my head sound. This was like an invisible orchestra was playing around me. And I took it personally like a gift for hanging on in there, not losing it during this fairly difficult time and challenging time, and staying with the centeredness and staying with the experience that this was just part of the path at this time of my life. This is what I had to do, and the tiredness and the work and blah 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 was just a stepping stone. And this, honest to God, it was the most amazing experience. But how interesting that, Jan, you'd been listening to jazz, and I'd been listening to this meditation from Thais, which is probably my favorite piece of music in the world. And you heard jazz, I heard Massenet, or very light. It was like a theme on Massenet. It could have even been Massenet, but I don't think it was. I think I was also listening specifically for any, or any similarities, and there were similarities. It was definitely the same kind of tone, the sort of timbre, the sort of level and layer that it impacted me on was all the same. And then, you know what? This absolutely floored me. It stopped, and as it stopped, my entire body was released from the paralysis experience, and I lay there slack-jawed. Wow, thank you, whoever, whatever that was. I totally, thank you. And I, the thing was, I had the awareness to know that that was what it was. I mean, it may be something else, but I mean, I didn't think it was something terrorizing or fearful. I mean, how could it be? Even though my body was paralyzed, and that's normally something that terrifies me. And I don't know why I can't get beyond that, but I never have. But this time, I don't know what the tweaking was psychologically, or the field energy was psychologically, the quantum field was, to keep me in a state of complete paralysis. I mean, that's a very scary thing, guys. I don't care what anybody says. It's, oh my God. For me, it's a terrifying thing. And anyway, that was the music experience. And isn't it interesting, Grant, all the way down the line now, last year producing the album Eclectia with musicians who've had experiences, and that was the criteria for the album being put out in the first place. And there's sound bites of their experiences, I mean, and so on. It's just remarkable. We never know what these bring us down the line of our life, do we? It's extraordinary. I always remember that gift. I'll never forget that. It's like a bit of gold being given to me.
So it led you to the album. Just mention again the album quickly, and maybe you can bring some of these people on the next time with experiencers who are.
Oh my God, yeah! I just did a 3-day interview a couple of weeks ago with Mike Oram, who's on it, who wrote about Travelers. That's the title of his song. Eclectia is an album. It's only available on a download. I can't. The physical album is so beautiful. I wish I could, put that out in the world, but until there's some more funding or a record label picks it up, I can't do that. But anyway, it is out there in the world. And the album, the criteria for the album was that all the music, everybody participating on it, including myself, who produced it, had to have had an X-File Factor experience. I'll just put it like that in a broad sense. But that included the spiritual, paranormal, the ET, profound sightings, and everybody's had something that changed their life, and the music that they're bringing through was also the same. And also, it's a kind of, as well as being an educational thing through the sound bites that some of the guys and girls have provided just before each of their songs, which is really different. It's kind of entertaining and educational. So the genre is not in the music. So it's a mixed bag. It's like a goodie bag. And I've also done some interviews with people like Grant, a little one with Chris Bledsoe. Sadly, we lost most of the sound quality, but I put it on just because it was his vibration on there. But and the biolocation team, who are doing ancient archaeology and finding ET and actually conversing with ET now through their work using dowsing. And I'm just putting something together on that. Anyway, but the Eclectia album is astonishing. There's a website, and I'm it was put together something called the ET Newsroom from the Amash Project, I had to close that down. And I've just given myself a bigger remit, and part of it was music. And I'd been thinking about doing this for, oh my goodness, three years. It might have even been sinking in with you, Grant. I can't remember, because I had my radio show in 2014, October 2014 it began, and I think it was maybe a little bit before then that I'd been thinking about, or around that time, I don't know, it's difficult to know now, about doing exactly this. And then it's like there's a strata of consciousness that comes in. You pick it up hugely with the Tuned In, and thank you for doing that. I have to thank you for everything you're doing. It's so brilliant being this linchpin for so many of us. Thank you. And then me with bringing to life one of my dreams, which was to produce an album. And it's, no one's ever done this before. There's lots of musicians who've written songs about their experiences, but no one's ever put together a compilation album with all that, and including some interviews with some of the leading guys. I mean, it's really, really exciting. So we're expressing this too in different ways, and isn't that wonderful? Because we're bringing to the platform, and Eclectia might not take off probably for, I don't know, maybe another 2-3 years, but someone said to me recently, listen, my friend has had an experience. I'm quite musical. I want to write a song for her about her experience. Are you doing volume 2? I went, oh, maybe I have to.
Yeah, you got
But,
Candace on here that'll do volume 2. Her and her son will join you for your volume 2.
Oh, well, listen, I tell you what, my sidekick, my associate producer on it died, in fact, coming up to this time last year, bar a week or so, unexpectedly. And he was the guy who would do the sound checks for me, who could do all that bit of the tech stuff, because he was a musician, singer, songwriter. And I'm the person who, cracks my own whip on myself and gets the project done and gets the people on board and keeps the quality and pulls it all together and, moves ahead with the concept. So if anybody knows anybody who can help me on that particular part, there will be no reason why I can't do volume 2. It's just I'm stuck. I'm not. The weird thing is, although I have a passion for music, like I have a passion for this subject, I'm not in the music field. So it's very strange.
Nor were I. I wasn't either. So that's the people they use. People who haven't got an axe to grind to do their job.
Well, that's just fascinating, Joanna, and I'm so looking forward to hearing the album. That'll be wonderful. And
yeah, you can get it on places like Deezer, Spotify, Bandcamp, and all the rest of that, and the website. You can get lots of information about some of the people, because the guy who did the album cover, a guy called Dan Vallely. I mean, he's we've even got on the gallery. We've even got a brain scan that he happily, kindly provided me with, showing an implant and this kind of stuff. So this is really, really these are incredible people who've come forward with their fantastic music. So this is another way to cross that bridge with everybody. So if people want to go and check out the website, it's the BET Newsroom, and then it's just .wix, W-I-X site.com and /Eclectia release. And we've just passed the year anniversary for that. But anybody who can or wants to, input to, volume 2 at some point, there's no rush. I've got 2-3 projects queuing as well, but it would be lovely. And I know that Dougie, my lovely man who left us far too early in my view, Dougie Degnin, he was absolutely, he lived his dream through developing that project, and one of his dreams, and I certainly did. And this is not only entertainment. I think it's a service to everybody. Yeah, it's incredible. So he, as I said, he was the one who did all of that technical stuff, just using his software on his computer. We didn't have studios. God, that would have been a lovely thing.
Well, I've actually got a music story I could share that's a little bit different. I don't know if we have time now, Grant, or should I say it? Yeah. So this is almost like an apport, a music apport story.
Oh,
good.
Yeah. Back in 1980, I recorded one of my original songs in a studio with some friends. And about a year or so later, a personal friend of mine who had his own home studio really loved the song. And he asked me, could he record another version of it? Could we, do it again? And he played all the instruments. He's one of those. He played all the instruments on it aside from the guitar. So I played, and it was kind of his own take on the song. And of course, in those days we were recording on cassette. There was some reel-to-reel and all of that, and digital was not quite there. We were still doing analog and all that. But anyway, we had cassette tapes. So he recorded this song in his home studio. He gave me a cassette tape of it, which I lost. I don't know what happened to it over the years. It just disappeared. And so fast forward to 2011, that friend passed away, and I had just taken my computer in to have it serviced, worked on. I was having some issues with it, and I went to Crestone actually with a friend, and we decided to do some borrow meditation for my friend for 10 days. And so I was gone doing that, and when I came back, I got my computer, and things were all sort of rearranged in terms of my music. I couldn't find my album. There's like the parts of my album were all split up in different places. So I'm searching on my computer to find these different songs that were on the album to put them back together again. And I ran across this file that said, you know, Candace Powers. And I thought, well, what's that? Because I don't normally, you know, I named the songs as the songs. I didn't put my name on there. And so I opened it up, and it was a recording of this song that I recorded in 1980. And as I listened to it, I realized, wait a minute, that's not the original recording, which I did make digital. That original one I did make digital and had it on my computer. But I realized all of a sudden, that's not that recording. That's the recording my friend did a year or so later, and which was on a cassette tape that had never been digitized. So it was absolutely impossible for it to be on my computer in 2011. And it was not only one copy of it, there were two copies. I don't know why two copies ended up on there, but it was not only on my laptop, it was on my desktop computer as well. Wow. So, I mean, that's an absolute, we could call that a miracle for sure, because it's impossible. There's no way that digital, I mean, that cassette tape could have, because it was never made. I lost the tape. It could not have been made, you know, into digital form to land up on my computer. Absolutely impossible. So what's that? Is that a Grant? Grant, is that an apport, a music apport? Seems like it.
That's them mixing it all together, almost like my presentation at Laughlin, where it was like 10 different things. It's like, and that's what I think what it is when it's really weird, because we've had these expressions today, like, I don't understand it, but if it's not weird, you're not going to pay attention. So they make it weird as possible to get your attention, where all you're doing your whole day is thinking like, what is going on here? And they get you going. I think that's what it's about. That's that trickster thing, where that's part of the thing where we talked about the puzzle. Like, instead of them coming down and saying, here we are, here's what we're here for, and then us trying to shoot them, they put this little puzzle and you're sitting there trying to figure it out. And once you think you figured it out, nobody's going to move you off that space. You know now you're putting it together. And that's maybe how they learn. They're teaching us to understand what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you get something that concrete, I mean, that, you know, technically provable or not, you know, it does get your attention for sure.
Okay, I see Joanna's screen is on. Do you want to show something?
Sorry, you know what? I was going to, I'm on my phone and I was looking to find where I could just write in the website name, and you know what? I can't, and I just came across the whiteboard. That's not what I was trying to do.
Oh yeah, the little chat thing on the bottom there. But we'll stick a link with, Desta's going to put this up on the internet. We'll put the link in there.
Oh, okay.
And we'll go, because we do have some new music stuff that maybe we can do something to make sure we document the rest of it. Because you sort of started, I think, almost the same time as I did the Tuned In thing. We both seem to have these projects that are documenting this bizarre aspect that people may be using vibration and music to get messages across.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is as well, there's so many things connecting with this, and I've decided that I've just got to put my toe in the water and I've got to make a documentary. So I've just started recording people, and because some of the people are older. I'm well aware that some people are experiencing health issues, and that's happening a lot around me with people that I'm really plugging into, like some of the detective dowsing people, really severe stuff. So when Mike Oram told me that he was experiencing a health issue, I took a week to dash up to Cumbria, which is a 9-hour drive for me from the south to the north, to the North Lakes, beautiful area, and recorded him over 3 days, some of his story. And then I left with him. Get this, I mean, I can't believe it. I left, I'll tell you just in a second. I know we're on time now. I'm sorry, I should have said it earlier. I was just listening to you all. It's fascinating. And he was reading the book that I wrote about this incredible English guy's story, who only, got to me in 2012 to tell me his story, which I took 4 years to write. It was so off the wall. Then he's coming back telling me that he's got some correlation with that story. Some of the more bizarre correlations of that story. Now, this guy, Mike Oram, wrote a book called Does It Rain in Other Dimensions? Really suggest you get that one too, guys. It's fascinating. And Mike Oram's story from a very young age. I mean, and I went up in Cumbria to all the areas where these major things have happened to him, the locations anyway. And one of them was in 2000, I can't remember if it's 3 or 4, because he also had he went to America in, I can't remember if it's 2004 or 3, one of those dates, because one was this event I'm just about to tell you now, and the other was the Area 51 event, where he saw in the regression that he was being subjected to a military examination about his experiences using a portable portal maker. I mean, have you ever heard of such a thing? It sounds crazy. But back to him in 2003, I think it was the year before, he was sitting at this crossroads on a little bench in this very remote area. It's beautiful, the Lake District in England, absolutely stunning, filled with lakes and what have you. And as he was sitting there, and when I visited the area with him, and he kind of went through the motions of just what he did physically there, walking down the lane and stuff, he said he was just meditating. And normally he gets a sensation, like most people recount or report, of something that alerts them to the fact that they're going to have a UFO ET experience or see somebody, but he didn't. And he just opened his eyes, and there was what he calls his space brother called Telosh. And Telosh told him that he could now go home. And this portal opened not 20 yards away on the other side of the road from him. And this will be in the documentary as well, talking about this. And he said it was about 7 foot tall, 5 foot wide. He said you could see through it. You could see the road through it, the rest of the road through it. He said, and he just told me that he'd done enough good in the world, enough. And that now, he could go home now. Mike, when he was a youngster, only about 17, he'd saved someone's life. They were going to kill themselves by jumping off a building in which he was working. And he was working late, and they were working late, and he just caught them before they threw themselves off the building, and he wrapped himself around their the legs and stuff. But what that did was cause him a ruptured spine, ruptured discs, a lot of serious spinal issues throughout the rest of his life. So he's been in tremendous pain, and that will have a reason in a minute why I'm telling you that. And so then Telosh, he said to Telosh, well, look, I would love to stay and see what it is that I told my mother at 4 years old, that what was going to happen on the planet. And at 4 years old, he told his mother in adult terminology that the changes that were about to come to the planet, and this is on his soundbite on the Collect Your album. And I know, Kat, you will have perhaps heard it because you have the album. And he talks about how he was told that this planet was going to change irrevocably and in a positive way, not in his mother's lifetime, but in his. And Mike is late 60s now. So when he told that to Telosh said, well, of course, you can stay. It's your free will to do so. But I have to tell you, it will mean that you will be in a lot of pain, for the rest of your life. And he said, he thought, well, you know, that's something that I'm familiar with. And he just thought it was this back pain. Anyway, in the last 4 years, maybe 5 years, he's developed peripheral neuropathy, which is incredibly painful 24/7. And he's lost the sense in his legs and feet, or his lower legs and feet, and so on. And so this is the tremendous pain that Telos was referencing. Why he can't have a healing from that, I don't know. I've asked him, he's asked Telos, he gets no answer. But anyway, whatever that is, it is. We don't know any other reason for that. But this guy met Telos, who was the subject of the Traveller's Song back in 1970 on a hill in Warminster, England, that became the subject of a massive town hall meeting, 10,000 people, that the villagers or the townspeople met in the town hall to ask what was going on, because there was so much UFO activity. And you can check it all out. A guy called Arthur Shuttlewood was part of it. And but this guy, Mike, who's on the album, was regularly eventually lived down there, going up and down to Warminster. Warminster is in the southwest of England and is very close to Salisbury, to Stonehenge, to Avebury, and to the areas where they make the crop circles. So interesting, isn't it?
Wow, beautiful.
Sorry about that. It took a bit of a long time.
That's okay. I've got the link for anybody who wants the checkup on the album. And if they want to add something to the next album, the link is in the chat box there.
Oh yeah, thank you. You know, I'm being pushed to move ahead, even if I think I'm taking a break.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
love
has
it.
anybody got anything else to add before we shut down?
Well, I thought that was interesting about all the music stuff, because when I was doing the EVPs, for some reason, on one of the voices that I pulled from one way back in the beginning, I slowed it down to like 14 hertz or something like that. And I did some other adjustments, and it turned out to be like this eerie music. I called it EVP music, and I ended up making several recordings like this from the different voices, and I saved them in a file. And when I want to relax, I listen to it, and it relaxes.
You get a track on the next album.
Oh yeah, sounds like it.
It's not a normal kind of music. It's very eerie and weird, and
it's like a meditation music. Yeah.
Yeah,
we've got everything. We honestly, if you listen to the album, I mean, you can hear lots of. I mean, somebody told me it was actually free somewhere, but I don't know about that. I didn't. But anyway, whatever. But you can certainly listen to lots of bits on the website as well. It's everything from Kevin Estrella's fantastic Song of Light, which is a heavy kind of guitar rock thing, to John Martin's classical guitar, A Jasmine Rain. And this is the guy who goes outside of a night to play to the alien space brothers or sisters, and they start depositing heart clouds over his property on a regular basis, as well as themselves turning up. So talk about a CE5. He's not having face to face, but as far as, well, I don't think as of yet, but he's getting these massive craft coming over as a direct result of him communicating with them musically. I mean, these guys are all on the album, and you know, what a privilege, eh? What a privilege to give this to the world and to share it and to share with these people. I think it's incredible, really. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Even you're getting the interview with Joe Wood. I mean, you have her now, you know, a celebrity in her own right in Great Britain, who is aware of it.
And you know, off camera, I said to her, "Hey Joe, how about we do?" Because one of the things that I've got to do on my to-do list is a late night chat show, which I would be thinking about hosting, and maybe with a co-host, and we would have just 3 or 4 or maybe 5 experiences sitting on a settee in a nice room with some nice graphics around, talking. No skeptics, they're not allowed. Just talking about the experiences. Any skeptics on and they'll get shot.
Excellent.
Yeah, so, and Joe Wood said, yes, oh my God, let's do it. So who knows, maybe sometime down the line, Joe Wood and I'll be hosting an Experience a Chat show later night on Channel 4 or something.
Yeah, that's the thing. We are moving along. We are getting ahead. When you get people like that come on board who, you know, we'll see in Manchester and who are really into it, I mean, it does raise the consciousness in terms of what people think.
Absolutely. And, you know, she was really excited when I suggested the idea and said to her producer, come on, you must know people. He said, no, I'm a radio guy. So, you know, anyway, she was moving house at the time. So after the interview I did with her, so she wasn't in a frame of mind to think about anything else. But, you know, who knows down the road, guys.
Beautiful. Okay, we'll leave it at that unless someone has something they need to jump in here, and we'll maybe do it in 2 weeks. Is that okay, Desta? Yeah, okay, Desta says okay. Desta's in charge. If you need anything from put in, or you want a link, because what we basically do is send a link to other people, so you can bring in other musicians or experiencers or people that might link into it, and let's do it again in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get Mike Oram on. I don't know if he has the technology. I don't know how his computer is. I know he was having problems, but I'll try and get him on, because oh my God, some of his experiences, wow, wow, incredible.
Okay, thanks you everybody for joining in, and we'll catch you again next time. Thanks for your sharing, and let's do it again. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Later, Phil.
If it's not happening.
See you, Desta.
Thanks for letting us
Bye,
use your Zoom.
Bye.
Bye, Desta. Bye, Jan.
She would talk next time.